Oh, they're marking 20 years of Reboot Who on Who's Views. In this episode, let's all have a look back at the series that kicked it all off in March 2005.
Hello everyone, it's Who's Views. How are you? This is another in our season overview shows. This one though has to be called series overview. They've been confusing me since 2005, I have to tell you, with the terminology here. But yes, we are looking back as we start our series marking. See, I've changed the word now so I don't say commiserate. Oh, damn. No, marking 20 years of Reboot Who this very month, 2025 March, as we go back to 2005 March. I want to start by saying hello to Lex Kane. Thank you so much for setting the tone for the show for your super chats here. He's saying to us, Rose Tyler, I was going to take you to so many places. Barcelona, not the city Barcelona, the planet Barcelona. You'll love it. Fantastic place. They've got dogs with no noses. Imagine how many times a day you end up telling that joke and it's still funny. And the last one, thank you, Lex. I might never make sense. I have heads. I might have two heads or no head. Imagine me with no head. And don't say that's an improvement. It's a bit dodgy, this process. I am absolutely certain that we're going to come to that as part of all this show. It's great to see you all. Thanks for joining us. Come into the chat and come and see us as we start this season overview. And yes, let's see who's on the Who-tastic panel. In the red corner, everybody, I've got the oldies with me. An oldie and a not-so-oldie one, actually, to give him his due. But yeah, in the red corner, it's the ones that remember Doctor Who from the original series. And were we sitting on the edge of our seats with anticipation over this one? I don't know. They're going to tell us, because joining me tonight, I've got Paul, I've got George, and Bedweir is here as well. So were you three guys in anticipation of this?
Is it really JT, 20 years?
JT, you say oldie, I prefer mature.
Yes. Season's another one, George. That's got a good one too. Yeah.
Experienced.
Experienced, absolutely. Goodness me. Yeah, so I mean, this is what... I mean, we were old hands at this game by the time this was coming back in 2005. I mean, you know, we were all sort of in the same line as RTD, Moffat, Chibnall especially, all these that were coming through, weren't we? You know, we'd spent the 90s listening to all these things. This was coming back. This wasn't coming back. It nearly came back. It didn't come back. It did come back. No, it didn't come back. You know, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. As it went through all this. We went through an awful lot to get to this point in March 2005.
Yeah, Dimensions in Time, the TV movie. What more can you ask?
Hey, so my story is that I discovered Doctor Who in the 90s, in about 1992. So I was very excited for Dimensions in Time and the TV movie because it was new Doctor Who that I hadn't seen. So
was I, but don't tell him.
Oh, unbelievable!
Because I fell out of love with current Doctor Who before it ended in '89. I was, I think, at best indifferent to the series coming back. I remember picking up a newspaper before the first episode aired, and there was a photograph of Christopher Eccleston, I think on the first day of location in London, and he was standing in front of the police box prop. Yeah. And the first thing I thought was, dimensions that police box are on.
Yes.
The windows are way too big.
I wonder how many people thought that.
We all did. Let's put our hands up. We absolutely all did, because I saw that as well. And then there was the other shot, which was the blurry one in the sun, which was the police box on the Cardiff street. That appeared as well. Do you remember at some point? I remember thinking, yeah, that's definitely not right. That can't be right.
I think my other reaction to that photograph was, what was he wearing? What is he wearing?
Well, that was the other thing, Paul. I looked at it again and I thought, there was Christopher Eccleston in his leather jacket and his jumper. And I honestly thought they were his civvies. And I thought, I wonder what his costume is going to be.
Yeah. Do you know what? I have to tell you now, I won 50 quid because I actually had a bet on that the Eccleston Doctor would turn up in a leather jacket. It just suited Chris. it suited Chris. I imagined it would be sort of a Matrix type thing, you know, more like what the current one has. But
Yeah.
I was delighted because I went and got myself 50 quid, everybody. That was what I call a win. In the blue corner in this show this evening, everybody, we've got our youth that join us here on Who's Views, the ones that, well, you know, that were born into this age. Bless them. So let's bring them on here. Of course, we're going to start with our very own lady of the chat. It is Kirsty. We've got Time Lord Victorious himself. It's Emilio. And joining us on the panel, everyone say hello to Miles. Right,
Hello, Miles.
Look,
Hello, everybody.
children are with us, everybody, ready to give us their experiences of encountering the Doctor for the first time from 2005. What are your initial memories, you three, about this British TV legend appearing on your screens?
I don't know. I just remember being shown it and then just how captivating it was, and then hook, line, and sinker after the first episode. And for me, especially that series 1, is just quintessential British science fiction for me.
Oh, is it? That's interesting.
It's comfort, it's family, it's home, it's safety. It's something I can watch again and again and still find exciting with certain bits and certain scenes and certain episodes that still get you pumped. 20 odd years now.
Now you know how
Welcome
we
to our
feel.
world.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Emilio and Miles? How did you find this?
I think it's totally just like nostalgic, completely just nostalgic. I think Christopher Eccleston just carries this season just so well. What a great actor he was. Just a shame we just didn't get to have him for longer. But I think it's absolutely fantastic. And then I was listening to Murray's soundtracks from back then as well. I mean, brilliant. I love it. I totally love it.
Okay, Emilio?
Couldn't have said it any better myself, actually. I just think, for me, the theme tune always used to get me. It just nostalgia in terms of, you know, gets you really excited for the next episode. You knew it would be a fun adventure, and you know, you knew that the stories would be good. Most importantly, you knew that you were going to be in for a good ride each episode, and I think each episode has its own merits. Not all are great in the series, but I think overall it's a quality series, quite consistent in terms of quality. So yeah, I would say overall it's a very impressive season to kick things off. Right, it really gets you into the show.
That trailer they launched with "You Want to Come With Me" was superb. That really helped grab the viewers. That was absolutely excellent.
Yeah. And that was something new for all of us, wasn't it, actually, as well? Because those trailers, we'd never seen anything like that from our point of view back in the day. You know, these were just so new.
Well, you had that specially recorded one that Tom did for season 17.
Yeah.
Which is bonkers, brilliant.
Yes.
Totally bonkers.
Yeah.
But that was it, really. That's the only one you can really remember. I know times have moved on, though, but I remember being very impressed. And unlike today, of course, as well, in those trailers, you got to see the TARDIS as well. That was totally unusual, you know, because they were trying to keep everything secret, weren't they? I like this from Legion of James, guys, who says, "Whose views generations?" And smiley people saying, "Oh, I'm excited. Hello, everyone. The new Who started me on a voyage of buying all the old Who. Best thing ever." That's great to hear, isn't it, guys? You know, because so many of the kids that came into the new series have found the old series, and that's just brilliant, isn't it? I love that. We've got Domgo saying to us, the first season was good. Eccleston was an inspired Doctor, and that was all RTD.
Yeah, you know how we talk about John Pertwee being the Doctor or Tom being the Doctor. If you go for New Who, that's the Doctor for me.
Well, Eccleston.
Hands down.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah.
I'm going to be slightly controversial here because I think Eccleston's a fantastic actor, and I understand why they went with him to try and get that credibility and not have Paul Daniels doing it next season. It was in order to make it more credible. But I don't think some actors can play the Doctor and some can't. I think he's very good at the strong gravitas parts, not very good at the comedy, but I think he's probably the wrong choice to be the Doctor, to be honest, in my opinion.
I thought Christopher Eccleston was a really good choice. What really annoyed me and I think disadvantaged him, was the whole focus of that first series, as I remember it, and I've not watched it in a long, long time, was all the attention and everything was driven by Rose, and he was the secondary character.
Yes.
Like, no, he's the lead. He should be front and center. Put him front and center. And that just didn't happen. He wasn't given the opportunity to shine because Russell T Davies was obsessed with making the companion the most interesting character to the cost of the lead character.
Yeah.
To add on to Paul's point, I do think Eccleston is the perfect doctor if you're going to have a PTSD doctor. Like, suffering,
I agree with that totally.
On a time war. I do agree with your point, George, that sometimes he could feel like a secondary character. But I got the sense in the series they were trying to show how Rose's impact on the Doctor's life helps him get from a place where at the start he's obviously still very scarred from the time war to the point where at the end of the series he's almost got like a kind of new thirst for life, if that makes sense. So I think it does a good job of showing that, but sometimes it could definitely overshadow Eccleston a little bit.
Totally. I want to come to that. I want to say hello to Paul Thomas Ashworth. That's PTA. Nice to see you. Thank you for your super chat. Rose was great. The only things that did not work were the comedy scenes, which were really cheesy, especially the one with Mickey turning to plastic right at the very beginning. I have to say, I agree with you on that, PTA. I still don't quite like that to this day. But here we are.
Don't get started on the burping bin, for goodness sake.
Let's
the farting aliens.
We've got this here. We'll get back to the chat here, but let's do the introduction. We are here to talk about, of course, season 1 or series 1 of Reboot Doctor Who, which started in March the 26th, 2005. It ran for 13 weeks. And as you can see, the Doctor, as played by Christopher Eccleston, came up against a lot of different adversities. He met a lot of different people through those 13 episodes. It was produced and showrun. This was something new for the show. The showrunner was created by RTD, as we know. Phil Collinson was a producer there, Julie Gardner, and that is Mal Young on the right as well, who everybody forgets was an exec on this particular show. And just because I can, I've also included Lorraine Hegarty there at the bottom, who was one, of course, of the head of drama and one of the BBC bigwigs at the time. And it was Lorraine Hegarty that had been fighting for some years, it turned out, to try and get Doctor Who back on air. She finally lost her rag and demanded that it came back. That was back in 2002. It was announced in 2003 that the show would be back. And 2004, they go filming. And 2005, it's on screen, sporting a brand new look, including this particular logo that became very confusing when walking around London late at night because it was everywhere. But there you go. And of course, as Paul mentioned, it was a big series for the BBC. We're getting several different trailers throughout the series. One which was just about the Doctor, one which was just about Rose, one which was the two of them together, and one, of course, the infamous first one, Do You Want to Come With Me? It was all going on. But I have to agree with what George was saying there. I've gone on record, guys. I'd be interested to see what Emilio and Kirsty and Miles think of this. And also Bedweir, of course, yourself as well. But I've gone on record many, many times saying this first series struck me more as a soap opera rather than the Doctor Who I knew and loved.
I remember the Christopher Eccleston's final episode where I'm a lifelong huge Dalek fan. And I was sitting there thinking, right, we've actually got the budget and the technology to realistically put hundreds of Daleks on screen. Why am I watching Rose having a heart-to-heart with her mum in a chippy straight out of an episode of EastEnders? Go away. Give me Daleks.
Yeah. I mean, what is that because I've had this conversation for years now, about 20 years nearly. Do you think it's RTD went on and Julie Gardner went on record back in the day saying they weren't sure about the audience's reaction, which I always thought was a little bit sort of, condescending.
Patronizing.
Yes, because, they knew we were all there. And, we all had faith that the British public would know what Doctor Who was, in theory. Even the youngsters would, I think, grasp into something if it launched with something like, I don't know, Robot or something like that. But here they were coming back with this soap opera element. the reason as well, George, that it was mainly all about Rose as the characters. They wanted to show obviously the companion role was a strong female role, but also so that the audiences of whom they didn't know was going to be out there could attach themselves to Rose rather than the Doctor.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but my memories are, the resolution of just about every episode I remember. It was Rose who saved the day. It was Rose who won through, not the Doctor. Like the first one, Rose, she's the one that dealt with the Nestine consciousness, not the Doctor. Even though what you do, if you think about it, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because she chucks a little test tube of anti-plastic into it, which destroys it. The Nestine consciousness isn't plastic.
Yeah.
No, it's a life form, isn't it?
You'll notice though there was no bum hole on this Nestine, George. Remember?
John Roberts is saying to us all, everybody, I loved it at the time, but I feel it's very dated now. And Paul Stenterford saying, for me, this season has very little in the way of rewatchability. It already appears dated when episodes from over 60 years ago have aged much better. That's my argument as well. I've been trying to watch, I have been watching certain episodes from Series 1, 2005, ready for this show. And some I can't get through now, and some I can. And I find it quite bizarre, Emilio, Kirsty, and Miles, that some fans that have come to the show with you guys won't allow it to age and won't allow themselves to agree that it's aged a little bit. Where do you guys stand on that now?
I feel like, of course, it's aged, in that I'm on the 50-50 sort of sitting on the fence, because I love Series 1 and I'm very loyal to it, but watching it again, it's aged, but it's still, for me, it's watchable. But if you look at the new stuff that we've had since 2017 onwards, give that a couple of years, that's going to be painful to try and if you're going to try and rewatch it.
It's painful to watch now, Kirsty. What are you talking about?
You have to watch it to rewatch it.
It's even more painful to rewatch, but this you can watch, and it's because it's of its time. It's not because of political or things. So you can give it a sort of grace with that you can still rewatch it and see it's because it's filmed in 2004 or 5. All right, but it's not screaming political things down you. That's not going to be the same thing in like 5 years' time. That's how I see it. So I'm 50-50 on the fence. I get where you're coming from, but I'm also part of that gang's a bit loyal to this series.
Any of you two?
I'd have to agree with Kirsty on that one. I think even if when I go back and watch Classic Who, there's certainly parts of it are dated, or if you're watching something in the 70s, you get a sense of this is made in the 70s. But maybe what you guys are getting at, maybe it's a little bit more on the nose around the kind of reference to popular culture at the time.
Yes.
And I think that's something that Classic Who didn't do as much.
Yeah.
So it might grate on some people a little bit more, but I think that probably if I'm guessing, that's probably what you guys are probably trying to get at. And I can see exactly where you're coming from on that. It just doesn't irritate me as much, probably because I was like 7, 8 at the time, and it was just, it just didn't really bother me. And even watching it back, I hold the same kind of nostalgia that Kirsty holds for that.
I mean, my memory of it was, even watching it then back in 2005, it was desperately trying to be of the now.
Yeah.
And inevitably, 20 years down the line, revisiting it, it's going to be painfully of the then, isn't it? Whereas, and I take your point, Emilio, a Doctor Who in the 60s and 70s, of course, they were made in the 60s and 70s reflect that, but they weren't screaming, this is the 70s. All the Earthbound stories, they were set around that time period. There was nothing to ground it. Whereas my memory of this series, it was so of its time that it sort of gave itself a very built-in shelf life.
Yeah. I mean, the Big Brother references and Trinity and Suzanne, all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
for me, but yeah.
the weakest link and all that sort of thing. Yes.
Google them, JT. Google them.
I will. Stephen Braddock is saying to us here, I still hate the man-eating bin. I couldn't. Do you know my response watching it that very night was, and we're going to be talking about Rosen. I'm reviewing the episode Rosen a few weeks' time, everybody, as part of this series. So make sure you're still with us. But I just remember thinking, well, that's one for the kids. I bet the kids like that with the burping bin. Captain Have Fun, nice to see you. I feel like a doctor without a sonic is like a Jedi without a lightsaber. Oh, dear. Okay. And hello and welcome to Rod DeGeorgis. I think that is. George is spot on. Rosen family came first, Doctor Who second, and this isn't for me.
I must admit, though, on that sense, I quite like the one in Aliens of London when they return back and she's been missing for a year. I quite like that idea. That never been touched on before. That the consequence of being away. I quite like that part of it.
Do you know what though? I find a lot of series one and some of the stuff actually with Moffat as well was familiar to me because it was actually a lot of it. You could tell they were listening and reading Doctor Who magazine in the Wilderness Years period, because a lot of those debates in the magazine at the time, why didn't the Doctor time travel as much as he should have done because he got a time machine? What happens to a companion's family when they go off for 3 years? Why was that never referenced? Other elements as well. What would happen with their job? You know, would people? These all came into the series because I remember doing a tick box in my head of thinking, well, that was in the magazine and that was in the, and it was as though they were addressing things that were in the magazine.
Well, Ian and Barbara had to go to the job centre, didn't they? After they got back in the chase, didn't they? So
yes, they did. Glenn Staines was all. I remember when I first watched Rose, thinking, meh, that was a quick 45-minute story, and the alien was beaten too easily. Anyone else had the same thoughts as me? Yes, I mean, I was quite excited to hear that the Autons were coming back. Looking back at it now, it was a very safe bet to do the Autons, wasn't it? It really, really was, because it was the shop windows, you could see it coming. But and again, let's see what Bedouin and Mal's, Kirsty and Amelia think of this. When you compare them here to Spearhead from Space Autons are still incredibly superior.
Yeah. Much creepier.
Yeah. I mean, that to me just came across as a 5-minute tacked on Spearhead from Space homage.
What about you, Bedouin? What did you think of the Autons in this one?
It's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult for me because the whole series was shot basically down the road from me. So they were in the shopping centre that I went frequently. They were on the streets that I know like the back of my hand. I mean, they've changed a bit since, but, you know, it was still recognisably Cardiff. And the excitement of them filming, not just Doctor Who, but Doctor Who near where I lived was incredible. I like that they do actually smash through the glass this time, and you do see it. I think that is quite striking an effect. I didn't mind them. Having watched, you know, obviously season 7's come out on Blu-ray this week, and you know, those original Auton masks, you know, there's kind of gauze under the eyes, and it is quite scary. And I get that these masks are a bit more modern and don't have quite as much impact, but I still loved it because it was still Autons. It was just a bit more modern. And coming back to the earlier points about the sort of family dynamic being central, Russell had said that his inspirations had been sort of Buffy and Lois and Clark and things like that, and those were shows that I was very much watching at that time. So it felt again of that time because it was very similar to things I'd already watched, but it was Doctor Who and it was new Doctor Who, and it was really exciting.
Going back to the Autons, that Auton child's particularly creepy, though, don't you think?
Oh, I like that one. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But I suppose as well, when you know, those Autons do look more like the shop window dummies that, you know, these three would have grown up, for example. It looks like they've just walked out of Next, strangely.
Yeah.
Next is further round on Queen Street, but close enough.
It just, you know, I mean, you know, do you three remember seeing them?
Mm-hmm.
Were you frightened of them?
No, I just thought this was the best thing ever.
So
the Auton Brides were good as well, I thought. I'll have to admit.
The Auton Bride. Yeah. All right, so Miles, you didn't find them scary. How old were you when this was on?
Oh gosh, 2005. I would have been about 6. Yeah, roughly around that age. Yeah.
Less.
Yeah. I don't think they were that scary. I think really the purpose for them putting in this episode is just merely for the classic Who fans to go, oh my gosh, these guys are back. And just to scare the kiddies for, next again day, they're walking down the street and, oh, look, that's scary. But they're very one-dimensional. They're very boring in this episode. I don't really think they bring much to it, to be honest.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to the review in a couple of weeks then with you. Really, Amelia, what were your immediate impressions of as you're watching it? Because you were quite young as well when this started here. So, go on.
I agree. No, the focus of the episode is really around Rose and living an ordinary life, and then the Doctor suddenly coming into it, and the relationship dynamic, and it's very much focused on that the Autons are almost like a side back, in the background. Basically, they just serve a purpose at the villain for an opening episode. So once you understand what the point of them is, you kind of I find them quite inoffensive. They're not scary, but neither do they not have a threat, right? Because I think that was it Clive, the guy that is the geek and everything, and then he's with his wife and in the shopping center, then he gets killed. So they do at least show that the Autons, are deadly. So I think they serve for an opening episode where you're not going to spend so much time on the villains. I think they serve its purpose quite well.
The thing about this is that the episode's called Rose, and the clue's in the title, isn't it? That's really what
that's true.
I mean, Russell T. Davies uses the exact same writing device as Anthony Coburn did in Unearthly Child. He uses one character to introduce the main character.
Yes.
Because if you compare Unearthly Child to Rose, there are parallels the way it's structured.
They've also learned. Hello to David, by the way. David, the first episode I saw was Boomtown on air date. I enjoyed it enough to keep watching, so I was surprised the Doctor changed. We all were, actually. But that took me down a wormhole, and I started watching classic On Go. Well, that's good to know. And hello to Silk Vampy. Hi, Silk Vampy. How are you, lovely? I learned to speak English because of Doctor Who, this episode on Import DVD, and I fell in love with Doctor Who. I'm in Rose age, so I can imagine her as a companion, and it's very good. Silk Vampy, it's lovely to see you. Thanks for joining in. Yes, stay in touch. Fantastic.
You just said, JT, that you were surprised that the Doctor regenerated at the end of the run. Now, I clearly remember finding out that Christopher Eccleston was bowing out before the first episode even aired.
Yes, it was on. I think it was on the day of Rose. Actually, that's what I mean. It was surprising. It hit the papers, as far as I know, on the day of Rose was broadcast that he had quit. He had gone. He had walked. That's what I mean. I mean, we were all quite surprised because we just assumed that was going to be. As old fans here, we thought, right, if this series is successful, we're bound to get greenlit for a second. It's going to go, and what Eccleston will be there to survive. So to hear on the day that Rose is broadcast, there's going to be a regeneration at the end of this. Yeah,
it takes the wind out of the sails a bit, doesn't it? To be honest, it means you're expecting something to happen at some point, aren't you?
Well, yeah, and it also just meant, well, how can we possibly get to know this version of the Doctor? Well, if he's only going to do one series.
Sorry, just going to say one thing to Christopher Eccleston's credit here was, I mean, it's now widely known that there was a big breakdown in the relationship between him and the producer of the series.
Do you think that is? Do you think that's widely known these days?
To his credit, and again from my memory, that doesn't show for a second on screen. He still delivers a fantastic performance.
He's a proper pro, isn't he? I mean, I know he's hard work because he is in the moment, isn't he? He is in the character. He can be quite method nearly, but he's a pro and he gets it done. And look at him in this.
I think it depends on which of the directors is working on that particular season, because the one or two they had more issues with than others.
That's
they
true.
made them more comfortable, I think. Allegedly.
PTA is saying to us here, Paul Thomas Ashworth, guys, Father's Day was very good. Creepy too, with the car going around the block in a loop.
Yeah,
my favorite. I love that episode.
I love Father's Day.
Dear. Tell us about that. What do you like about Father's Day? Because I found that a little bit too human for my liking.
Yeah, I suppose. I think the Father's Day, going back to what I'm saying about the soundtrack for Father's Day is just so emotional. And I think you can really sort of believe in these characters and what they're going through. And I think it's a very simple episode to show people, obviously, who would be new to Series 1, what happens if you try and save someone who's supposed to be dead. You know what I mean? And the cause of effect, and obviously, yeah, the monsters and all that. I think it's just a really, really strong episode. When I rewatched it just recently, I was like, yeah, this is why I love this.
No, there are some good episodes this season. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of good stuff in here, definitely.
The music in that episode is amazing. I love the opening, the first kind of 5 minutes where the Doctor and Rose are basically going to watch him die, and then you've got the other versions of them, and the Doctor's reaction to Rose running out to try and save Pete. And what I think this series don't do really well is actually it does put the Doctor and Rose in conflict with each other, right? So the Doctor's really angry after she done that. They also have like a moral difference in the Unquiet Dead around how you treat dead bodies. There's actually tension there in the relationship. You compare that to the RTD2 in the first season. There's no conflict between the companion or the Doctor whatsoever. Everything is happy go lucky. So I think it does a really good job of, yes, they're friends, but they're not afraid to add the conflict, and also show that the Doctor is alien and different to Rose. And I think that Father's Day does really well.
You see, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it again then, because I've watched it twice. I watched it on the original broadcast, and then I watched it when the DVD appears. And it's probably because I was older, because I just thought, I've been here. I'm assuming that everybody knows what I know about what Doctor Who does with time travel. So you've got great points there, guys. I'll have to go back and look at it. But I also remember thinking she's going to change history at some point, and thinking, oh, that's not on. Mrs. Lisa Pertwee saying, I loves the Eccleston run. It's still the best season of New Who. And Paul Rose, I think they struck the right balance between pleasing fans and appealing to the wider audience. Well, I think you might have something there, because the ratings were fantastic for this series. Absolutely superb feedback. And because of that series, it's still on today. That's a fact, basically. And Dom goes saying Dalek and the Empty Child are fantastic. We're all using the word fantastic. Wonder why. I don't think New Who ever got any better than those two. I mean, it was certainly a roller coaster of a series, and it's great to see what everybody's saying in the chat, as well as you guys as well. So keep it coming, everybody. Keep it coming. Thank you so much. The bin isn't going down well, though, guys.
I like the bin.
You like the bin.
There's always one.
Yeah, I know. He's got a t-shirt. When Doctor Who talks about everyday things, it dates it, says Stephen L. Rees. Also, there's a lot of conversations which drag the pace down and often has nothing to do with the plot. And Smiley people are saying Emilio should be the next Doctor with Kirsty as the assistant. Oh, it's a great show tonight.
Kirsty, that would be one.
Do you want to go with him?
I'd produce them.
I'd make a terrible Doctor. Don't pick me. Pick Miles.
And here's Sir Sidney Rough Diamond saying to us, I liked Eccleston and Piper, but RTD's soap operatic writing was so grating at times. It dated quickly too.
I have to say, though, season 2 is more, now as an adult-ish, season 2 is more of a soap opera than season 1.
It gets worse. Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you.
But I think the improvement on season 2 from season 1 is they reversed the roles and the Doctor became the lead character. He was the centre of attention. I think that was absolutely right. It was the way to go. I paid more attention to season 2 because of Elizabeth Sladen's return. That got me to tune in a big way. But when I did watch that, I noticed when David Tennant took over, there was a very definite shift towards making the Doctor the central character and making the hero again. And
I think it's done as well. I mean, they must have learned very quickly, because remember, in those days, they would finish a series, have a few months off, plan the next one, work on it. So they were able to get in there and actually. So they must have learned what had happened there, because they had this huge appreciation coming back from the British public. It was massive. It's hard to say now and appreciate how big that series and the impact it had on the Notwees. Real British public were watching this. They were tuning in every week, Well,
suddenly everyone was a fan, weren't they? That was the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of that is down to the fact that it was familiar to a general audience, in that it was soap opera type style. And I think that is crucial, actually, to the success of it, because it felt not like this little cult show. It felt very much of TV drama at that time. And at that time, soap operas were the big ratings grabbers every week, and steering close to those kind of stories made sense if what Doctor Who needed in particular was a big audience, and that's what it got.
But do you remember as well that halfway through the series, and certainly when the series finished, there was an awful lot of letters. That dates it as well. Letters to the Radio Times, also to Doctor Who magazine from the fans, which were, when are we going to alien planets? This was the thing from the public. I remember the public coming back saying, all right, we've done that now. When are we going to alien planets? And they were so tentative about taking the modern day audience to, and yet I reckon, prove me wrong, you three, would you have gone to an alien planet at this point with the Doctor? Would you have gone in series 1, or would you have gone further than they dared to? I mean, they went to Satellite 5 and they went to the space station, didn't they? That was it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That was the same place, wasn't it?
No, Satellite 5 and the End of the World spaceship. No.
The Long Game, Satellite 5, and Parting of the Ways, and Bad Wolf is again. You're back at Satellite 5.
And Long Game's the same place, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's definitely. I was watching the Ark in Space recently, and I thought, and Revenge of the Cybermen, right? You've definitely taken the fact that you go back to the same place from that, I'm sure. But as a side
well, it does save on money sometimes.
Yes, that was definitely a budget stretcher back in the 1970s.
But then I think, again, this is them doing something new for the first time, and they're treading carefully. By the time they get to series 2, they know where the limitations are in terms of the CGI they can put in and all that sort of stuff. So they are learning as they go, and you see that uptick in quality, and they become a bit bolder when it gets to season 2, 3, and 4, because they've learned the lessons from season 1.
Yeah,
they know what they can do. So I think it's a sensible decision not to try and do an alien planet in those first 13 episodes if you're not confident about being able to deliver it.
I think it's just a shame they weren't confident, because I think they should have been, because as fans, as older fans, we knew it was going to be successful if they did it properly. I mean, I always say, I remember conversations back in 1993, when I was buying merchandise with the anniversary logo on back then. That's never going to come. And I say it's going to come back, and it's going to be huge. It'll be massive. And I was right, because I knew that entertainment value would be fine. I knew that they were going to come back and watch this. But I loved the fact that the British public did come out halfway through series 1 and say, "Where's the alien planets?" Because that's what they know Doctor Who is.
But they were very brave in the End of the World, though. The episode 2, they went to the platform, and they had all the aliens there, which was superb. I loved all that.
That was a great way to test the water again.
Was quite brave, because it wasn't an alien planet. There's lots of different aliens, superb, and that CGI is not bad, is it? I think
it's not bad at all. I think it still stands today. To be quite honest, I think it's quite nice. But you're right. I mean, look at these. Look at this makeup as well. This is well thought out. Lovely stuff. Really lovely stuff. This fella as well, who became infamous for a little while.
Jimmy V.
Yeah. The Mox of Balhoun. Yeah. Of course, that was one of the first publicity pictures to be shared with the press and taken out there, wasn't it? The Mox of Balhoun. He even made the cover of Doctor Who magazine with this very picture.
He's got a Zygon face, though, hasn't he?
Yeah. But none of us realised that he was going to get frazzled in the episode. And he turned out to be nicer than I expected. I thought, we're looking at another Syl type character.
And we got the face of Bo, remember, as well at this point.
Yeah, we got the face of Bo. This I wasn't happy with.
A sexy tree.
A sexy tree.
Yes.
Now, this is where I started to get in this episode, everybody, little bits of vibes of, hang on, what's happening? Because the Doctor was obviously flirting with her, and she was flirting back, and there was all that lovey-dovey crappy thing. I know where you're from. The first tear. And that's
I didn't mind the tear that fitted in the context of the show, though, didn't it?
Looking back on it, it does. But I remember thinking, because we didn't know at the point when you first saw it what he was crying about, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
So, but at that point, I thought, hello. But that whole sort of attraction-y thing and the flirting and those horrible, that for me, what is still horrible dialogue, it's cringeworthy dialogue. I don't like this. I don't want this.
I give you air from my lungs. That bit, yeah.
Well, also the bit where he's, there's plenty more where that came from.
It was a message. Very carry on film.
Yeah. But it was pretty good. And then, of course, he had this as well.
The human trampoline. Yeah.
The children seem to like Cassandra, though. So let's ask them. Did you guys like Cassandra?
No.
Well, she got 3 or 4 action figures. Come on.
She did, yeah.
I like Zoe Wanamaker as an actress, and she's got a great voice, and she's a brilliant actress. But yeah, because I never wore that was one of the New Earth and that you never. Really,
I hate New Earth with a vengeance.
Yeah, worse than that.
She was never that. It was never that interesting. I don't know whether it's in reference to maybe at the time, like cosmetics and people getting cosmetic surgery was a real booming thing, and so it is definitely a reference to the culture, or what's going on in the culture around in the 2000s. So I think as an idea, it's potentially interesting, but yeah, she wasn't. Execution. I didn't really enjoy watching Cassandra too much.
Okay. So tell me more about this whole thing about the New Earth storyline here, guys. I mean, you guys are young with this, and did I hear you there saying you didn't appreciate it? You didn't like it? Miles? No. Emilio?
No, because it doesn't. If I remember correctly, it ends with Zoe Wanamaker, Cassandra and her real body, and her guy that basically dies or something like, or no, she dies. Again, I can't remember, but it was just they tried to make an emotional drama out of it, and it just fall flat. That's all I can remember off the top of my head for that one. I actually one of the ones I never go back and rewatch.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Totally skip worthy. That is totally skip worthy.
Scathing.
It's funny. It's one of my favourites of the season. Actually, I really like episode 2. I'm just awkward. Me, it's just me. I'm just being obtuse. I do like it. I do. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. I thought the funniest part of it was when Cassandra goes splat and it just on the wall.
Yeah, very gory. Actually, to be fair, it's quite disgusting.
I thought that was hilarious. I was like, well, that's quite good. I wonder who got to throw the bucket.
And the Ninth Doctor gets you some lovely dad dancing as well, doesn't he? Which is quite good. He does all that stuff. It's quite nice. But
do you know the other thing that shocked me? Well, these were the 2 things that shocked me about this episode. Again, coming from where we had been for 26 years, was the inclusion of Soft Cell and Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on, this is different. What's this? Hello.
I really liked that touch. I thought it was really nice, actually.
It was quite funny, I must admit. But I just thought, hang on. Craig Dunlop, I didn't like the Forest of Cheam, though the performances were a bit wooden.
He's here all week.
Take your glasses back to the bar.
Thank you, Craig. And CGI, says Arthur, is, if done well and tied in with the storylines, in sync with it, can be a treat if it's used properly. I think it's lovely now, as we know from this channel as well, and people that have come on the channel, that they are bringing back actual models now. Yeah. So can you imagine the satellite? What was the? Oh, it's the platform, wasn't it? It was Platform 5. Oh my God, that's just come from somewhere. I don't know where that's come from. But Platform 5. Can you imagine if that was an actual model now? And you could go into an exhibition and look at it. That'd be quite nice.
One thing I do remember watching Series 1 back then, to its credit, was sitting there thinking, visually, this is probably best the series I've looked. They've clearly chucked some money at this, and at least it shows on screen.
It did show on screen. Yeah.
There were a couple of fantastic models in particular.
Oh, yeah.
So the front of Big Ben that gets crashed into, although they filmed it the wrong way around and had to flip it. So it's actually the clock faces the wrong way around. The Dalek Emperor towards the end, that was a model. So those 2 things were on display in exhibitions and were stunning in terms of the detail.
There's a lot of dark humor coming through here, everybody in the chat about the wooden trees and everything like that. Behave yourselves. What are you?
Come back for a Carry On film review. That's what we need.
Oh, we love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. There was a disturbing thought, says Sadeko, that Cassandra is what humanity had come to by the far future. I love the fact that Rose, Billie Piper plays that as Rose as well, doesn't she? I'm the last human, you bit of... I actually quite like that. That's a great thing, that. But interesting performance.
Also, that I have a memory that. Am I right in thinking that Billie Piper wasn't the first choice for Rose? I seem to remember hearing that it was offered to Anna Friel and she turned it down.
I don't know if that's a rumor, actually, because Anna Friel had been associated with the role of companion from way back when the show wasn't even coming back. I first heard about Anna taking a role in Doctor Who. Actually, after Brookie, sometime after Brookie, of course. So I'm not too sure. Anybody know in chat? Tell us. What do you think of that?
I remember, I think Billie Piper had done what was it? The Canterbury Tales episode.
She had, yes.
That was it.
Yeah.
And suddenly she just she became like a hot property in terms of acting, and this was an obvious role for her. So I think I agree with you, JT. I think Anna Friel Chat was predating the announcement in 2004 that the show was actually coming back. And suddenly Billie Piper just went rocketing to the top of the list.
And she blew them away in their audition, obviously. But can you remember as well when it was announced, there was a lot of press. We're going to be talking about this in a couple of weeks as well, but there was a lot of press, a lot of stuff. Her announcement there with the usual, it's just who the doctor ordered, just what the doctor, all that sort of stuff. The new Who, the new, you can see that's just a sample, because it would take loads of stuff, loads of graphics to put together of all this stuff. Doctor Who was suddenly everywhere from the announcement in 2003 through production in 2004 and then of course into 2005. But there was an awful lot of, I have to say, fan negativity over the casting of Billie Piper, who just kept thinking about, because she wants to, what's wrong with that? It's a great pop tune, by the way. I love it. I've got the album just over here. So but I'm off on one. Yes, but didn't she do well?
She proved us all wrong. Yeah.
She carried that, and as a first assistant for the likes of those three down there, for a first companion. Come on then, let's get onto the subject of Billie. You three especially, like or not like, as Rose?
Mixed.
Ooh! I'm
Mixed
standing back in staggration here. Go on, tell me my wiles.
There's parts where I enjoy on Father's Day, like I said before, like I enjoy the raw emotions she has with her dad and stuff like that, and I think she does that really well. But the sort of her and Mickey, that whole sort of stuff, and she treats him like dirt throughout the whole series, just like leading him on, and it was almost sort of painful to watch. But I think I do prefer her more in series 1 than I do series 2. I think she gets quite annoying in series 2. Sort of pick me girl, and it gets sort of a bit irritating. But I sit on the edge with her because I do enjoy her, especially in this series, and I did like when she came back in series 4. But 50-50, I think, with Billie.
Interesting. Okay. Kirst, Emilio?
I agree with Miles. I would say season 1 Rose I massively prefer over season 2 Rose. Season 2 Rose is just obnoxious and she's irritating, let's just say that. Especially her reaction to, with Sarah Jane. I mean, it's just, but I mean, does the show go out its way to also recognize that those are like flaws of her? A little bit with Mickey in particular, right? He has an arc that he goes on, and basically come the end, it's almost like, well, you don't need to you don't need me. You've got the doctor. Basically, like the show does acknowledge some of her flaws within it. But yes, I would agree. She is much better served, I think, in season 1, and I think her relationship with Eccleston as a pair works a lot better than Tennant and Rose. If you compare her to Martha and Donna, I think Martha and Donna are much more easy to watch episode to episode. They don't irritate me in the same way that Rose can at certain points, and especially season 2.
Interesting. Oh my God! Right, that's it. What about you, Kirst?
I'm pretty much the same with the lads. That
wow,
it's all 50-50. She's always going to be a special place, first assistant sort of thing, first companion. But season 1 Rose, you can see the journey she goes on. I still agree how she treats Mickey is not a good look for a woman at all. And to try and build that I'm the bestest thing ever kind of character and woman power and all that. Good look.
She's an absolute cow, isn't she? Let's be honest.
It's right. It's your
towards Mickey,
character, and you're treating men like garbage. That doesn't make you cool or special. The second series Rose, you can skip New Earth, you can skip Tooth and Claw, and by the end of it, when she's all getting a bit too cocky that I'm going to stay with you forever and I'm indestructible, that's nippy. But she'll always hold a special place. And the stuff with her and Camille Kaduri, great acting, great kind of bouncing off in scenes with those two in that first season.
That's really interesting. There's a picture of Camille for you all there. Her best, finest 80s garb.
Yeah.
Couldn't resist
The
that one.
80s here, fantastic. Yeah.
You know what, though, guys? I'm stunned by what those three say, because I've had it, basically fed to me that Rose was the be all and end all. That's why they kept bringing her back.
Yeah.
The most popular, the most popular.
They kind of did the same thing with Rose that they have now done with Tennant, haven't they? Really, that's what they've done.
Yeah, that's true.
It's forcing it, where you want it or not.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I agree with what people said. In season 1, she was very good, but in season 2, it didn't really work because her and Tennant were really, really smug, and that was a problem. And all the romance came into it more as well, which was really annoying. But
my perception of it was Billie Piper as Rose was absolutely untouchable. She was the greatest of the great. To raise any sort of criticism against her, you would burn in eternal damnation of hell. And I just said, and I think, no, not while there's Katie Mannings and Elizabeth Sladen's in the world. She's not.
Yes. That's very true. We've got a lot of chat about this coming off now. Like in the chat, Legion of James saying to us, Rose started off really great, like a reimagined Ace. However, she quite quickly became an irritant. Oh my goodness, I'm learning a lot tonight. Paul Stenterford, I'm certainly not keen on Billie Piper as Rose. I don't think she's a particularly good actor, and I feel that this was a bit of stunt casting by RCT in order to gain publicity for the show. If it was, it worked massively. Massively. Remember, our press was full of all this, wasn't it? The Radio Times, Doctor Who. I was actually quite sort of like, oh, okay, that's it. But then I liked her music. I'd seen her JY, for crying out loud. I was like,
I kind of wish.
We've got Marcus Parry saying, absolutely love Billie Piper's Rose. Thought her as a person and actor got better every episode. Thank you, Marcus. Go on, Paul.
I was going to say, I kind of wish, though, at the end of Doomsday, when she goes to the parallel universe, that was it, because that would have been far more emotional. Yeah. But they kept bringing her back and bringing her back, and that took the sting out of that. And the same way they did with Donna in Star Beast, really effectively. It's just a waste that dramatic moment.
But they don't understand that sort of dramatic pause, do they? Because they did it with Tennant. They brought him back with Tate as a new version when they should have just brought him back as a 10th Doctor before the whole Donna thing. I don't know.
I agree with Paul there. It would have worked with Rose so much, because I mean, like, Pride Before the Fall, right? She was so obnoxious, so cocky. For her to then just died in Doomsday would have been A, shocking, but B, it actually would have paid off her kind of her arc, I guess, a little bit as well. Yeah.
And Murray's music at that point is superb as well. When they're touching the wall, it's superb. Works really well. Yeah.
It's a great. But that's series 2. But it would have been interesting to see how the public would have, because honestly, I've had this reason. I've been under the I'm going to say misinformation now that she was the bestest ever when it came to the companion. She was the top dog.
Yeah,
with the younger ones, I'm not talking about ours. I'm talking about the reboot version, and that's what I've been led to believe, because it was always in the magazine. I've heard, the fact that she came back how many times? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, so you include the 50th, and even though she's not Rose, she's Bad Wolf.
It was Billie Piper, and they thought she could bring. Yeah, interesting.
I think Donna is actually in our generation. I may be wrong, Kirsty, Mal, but I think out of all the new Who companions, she's the one that probably stands out the most.
From the old farts as well, I'd say so too. I do that.
For me, Donna is certainly more in tune with ours.
Yeah.
For me, Catherine Tate in the original run was by a country mile the best of the companions.
Yeah.
Thanks to Sheila B, who was saying to us that I think I enjoyed the series because my children enjoyed it. That's lovely, Sheila B, in the devotion. Thank you. And RD Animation Films and Model Builds. Hello, mate. How are you? The best episode was Dalek of the whole first series. But again, I'm very mixed on Dalek, simply because it's all about Rose and the Dalek rather than the Doctor and the Dalek, really. Although, Bedouin, do you think they've got 50-50 there? What do you think of Dalek?
Oh, I mean, I love Dalek. I just want to add something to the Rose Billie Piper discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the reason that Billie Piper is quite rightly lauded is because when it came to the National TV Awards, she won that in consecutive years for Series 1 and Series 2.
That's a good point.
It goes back to appealing to the general audience who are on the whole watching that soap opera element, and if you can deliver those emotional moments, that's what's going to get you attention from that wider audience.
I tell you something.
Yeah, we can pick apart, the character and you know, see the issues with it in terms of Doctor Who, but for that general audience, she was massive. And yeah, I don't think Freema won. I don't think Catherine Tate won. I might be wrong, but yeah, she was the one that sort of crossed over in terms of that general audience.
It's interesting though, because there's a lot of people in the chat talking about this now with Rose. So thank you so much for all this, because I am learning an awful lot on this, not just from the three youths on the show tonight, but from all of you in here as well. I have been under some sort of misconception over all these years, just simply because of what I've constantly been told. She was the it one, you know, and I never understood why, because well, she was all right. Rose was okay, but I would have dropped her off at the end of series one, put it that way. As he nearly did, actually. He tried to, did he? I think that was a bit. Take the hint, kid. He didn't want you off. But thanks to everybody. Noodle Arms is also saying to us, I was so excited to see the new TARDIS interior as it was revealed. A small problem is making us think you can keep the TARDIS going using a toaster and a rubber mallet.
Yeah.
That was one point. And I like the way that Rose had an arc and then a character left the show. Oh, wait, that never happened, did it? Rose came back and back and back, says Mudcrab. Yeah. And Domgo is saying to us something here. The only problem I had with it was Captain Jack in a kid's show. I grew to ignore it, but the first time it did shock me. Now, I have to point out, of course, that John Barrowman was the first person to be cast in this version, this reboot of Doctor Who, and the first one to be announced. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, I know what that's going to be about. And I found a lot of Jack's scenes very uncomfortable as a Doctor Who fan of old. I just thought, I don't like it going into this territory. Really, really don't. It was going into all this sort of innuendo, and I don't know. It wasn't for me. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I mean, what I don't know. I don't know what you guys think.
I prefer Captain Jack post season one. I prefer him when he comes back to Doctor Who season 3. I think it's a good introduction to the character in The Empty Child and Dr. Dancer, but he is annoying after that in Boomtown and parting of the ways and stuff. So he's a bit too camp in season 1. I find him a little bit more less camp and a bit a bit kind of worn torn a little bit when you get back to him in season 3. Obviously, you want Torchwood as well. You know, you get to see him there, but I prefer him a little bit later on in the series.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Well, I'm with you on the innuendo, JT, in terms of like all the sexual connotations and stuff like that. I find all that really tiresome. And then you've got the where did he keep his gun moment and
oh no, that was good.
Yeah.
Oh no,
you know what I mean? So all of that, I couldn't be bothered with that because it's Doctor's not a sexual show. It doesn't need to be. You know what I mean? It's
well, it is more now.
I'm not a prude. I'm not a prude though. That's what I'm saying. I don't mind a bit of innuendo, but not on this show. You know.
The fact is, it started here and it's carried on, and look where it's got to now. Let's be honest. Here in 2025, look where it's degenerated into. Not regenerated, it's degenerated into this mess, this horrible, awful mess. But it starts here, and there were elements here where I was watching this and just think this isn't quite the Doctor Who I was hoping for. Why did they put that in? Why did they have to do that? That thing that you've just talked about there with that little gun. I mean, some people might have laughed. I just went, oh my God, how embarrassing.
Well, even Jackie gets her moment. She talks about how she got the truck, how she borrowed the truck and she was so-and-so a favour, you know, and that kind of stuff, or whatever, you know.
Oh, but that even in Road, we'll talk about that more. In Road, she has the moment with absolute come on to the Doctor. I mean, we'll talk about more about that, I would imagine, in a couple of weeks' time when we do this. But it's interesting, isn't it, that this wasn't what we were used to, and yet these three and Bidweir as well, being reintroduced the character, are all born into this. That's Doctor Who to them. It's no wonder that the show is so defended now by people of 20-something-year-old. You know, because that's what they don't necessarily know any difference, really. Do you know what I mean?
But I think if you hadn't written this series in this way, it wouldn't have connected with the general audience, been a success, and it would have only lasted 1 year, and then Doctor Who probably wouldn't have come back again.
Do you know what? From where we went to, I wouldn't have complained.
Well, this is the difference now, because Series 1 is pitched to a general audience to get as many viewers as possible, and whatever nonsense you just watched last year is clearly aimed at a specific demographic that is very minimal rather than the general audience. And that's why, as we've pointed out, the ratings are in the toilet.
Yeah, we've got lots of thanks, Carwin. Lots of us, and lots of our friends in the chat here. Just Jordan said to us, I think she was recognizable as the Doctor's companion, even if you didn't particularly like her. Yeah, I mean, I get your point there, but of course she's going to be recognizable because that's the format of the show. A Doctor companion. That's it. It's about how it's written, that relationship as well, wasn't it? And there's some nice moments, but again, there was this fan element coming in from the writer. Is she safe? Is she safe? Is my daughter safe? I mean, that was never the point. It was, Doctor Who was never the question of it, because it makes the viewer think, "Are we safe? Is she safe?" I don't know what they were trying to do there. I just thought it was a little bit too real in a sense.
I quite like that element of it.
Go on, yeah.
I actually quite like the fact that it trying to show the impact of the Doctor's life, but not just on the companion, but also those around the companion and the people that matter. Because if you just disappear off the earth, somebody else does care about that person and want to know where they are, or if they die or whatever happens. There is a ramification, there is an impact to that. And I get Classic Who is very much adventure serialized, so you don't necessarily need to go into that level of detail. But I do think for the purposes of bringing it back in 2005, I think it made a lot of sense. And I do think it adds something else to the show that it didn't have in Classic Who. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing when it's done right. If it's overdone, then like anything, it can become annoying and frustrating. But I do think in season one, not at all points, but at a lot of points, it does work, and it does add to the drama, and also the kind of you worrying or caring about the characters and what that means. So yeah, I don't hate it as much. I think it was a little bit overdone in certain points, but yeah, I think it serves its purpose in terms of the story.
It's all things like all this references to chips. End of the world. She's just seen the planet destroyed, and there's do you smell chips? And then at the end, she's what you said at the end, where she's just sulking because she's in the chip shop in 2000 well, I think it's 2006, isn't it? By that point, and she's. I know what Bedouin is saying. I do understand that, but I actually think the audience would have gone with some more Dalek action rather than just.
I think Billie Piper is a very accomplished and skilled actor. I mean, if you ever saw Belle de Jour, she was excellent in that. But like any actor, she can only deliver what's in the script.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's why I said she nailed it. I think she did a fantastic part, and she certainly played a huge part, as did Eccleston, in bringing in the massive audiences, which were established in this series, were retained to the Christmas invasion of 2005, Tennant's first episode, and then for 5 years or 4 years after it. So it really was. The audience was still there. They went right through Tennant and into Smith. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Connor Simpson, nice to see you. Thank you for subscribing. He's saying, "Hey, mate, I'm glad to subscribe." Well, thank you, Connor. Nice to see you.
I mean, whatever your opinion is of Series 1 and the rest of New Who, and whatever your opinion is of Russell T Davies, one thing you've got to give him is he read the room properly when he relaunched it, as Bedouin said.
Yeah. And you have to give him credit for that. I know they were all nervous. I know the production team was sitting down going, "What can we do? What can we do?" But he had enough confidence to say, "Well, we'll take it up to that point." So actually, the format, if you look at this season as well, the format was modern day, future, and past in the first 3 episodes to show. In the first series, that's brilliant. But it seemed to be done every single year after that for a wee while there, as they brought it in, as if they were thinking new viewers were going to come in every year. But for the first year, I thought that's brilliant. Show what the TARDIS can do. Absolutely fantastic. It's great to see you all. Call me old-fashioned, says John. I preferred the white TARDIS room. Or you're old-fashioned. No, I'm with you, though. I'm with you.
I have to agree on that one. I mean, again, this is purely personal taste, but the new design of the TARDIS interior just did not do it for me at all. When it was revealed, I just looked at it and thought, what the hell's that? You got one of the classic set designs of all time on British TV. You've just moved so far away from it to something that just has no impact.
And yet, ironically, in the latest series, they've gone back to that sort of feel. They've gone far too OTT with it. Hello to Linny. Hello, Linny. Nice to see you. I can't see the chat on screen. Is it me? Yeah, it must be. But the humor didn't work for him. Clara was the most annoying companion. We're not going to talk about her tonight, sorry. And way too much screen time. But it's nice to see you, Linny. You're going to have to stay with us on Who's Views because we're going to get to Clara at some point in the far future.
Big fan
I
of
hated the TARDIS being organic. That was something I loathed.
The what?
The TARDIS being organic, and it grows. You can grow a TARDIS, all that kind of
you can't grow a TARDIS. It was built by
an engineer. The TARDIS was awful.
So,
I love the coral TARDIS. I love it.
Do you love it, Emilio? You love that, do you? What is it about that you loved? Is it because it's your first TARDIS?
Probably. I'm going to say definitely probably part of it. But it's, I don't know. I actually like the kind of coral feel. I think it gets to the point that the TARDIS, and they do make a point, obviously, it's very relevant to the first season around the TARDIS being alive. It's not just a machine. But I in the first series, I know the lighting darker. They kind of changed it the later season and got a bit brighter. But I do think it's quite warm. It's quite cozy. It feels more homely. I actually don't like the TARDIS when it just feels like any sort of bland spaceship, and it's very kind of cold and metallic. And I actually prefer it when it's warmer. So that's just my preference. I think that because it's a Doctor's home. It's not just some ordinary. But
there's no furniture, there's no doctorness in it. It's just all the set, isn't it? That's
whereas to me, particularly in wide angle, that looks like a wedding marquee.
The ceiling part of it.
I feel like what Emilio has pointed out there about the lighting. I think the lighting was actually thought about. I quite like.
The lighting is wrong.
I like this shot.
No, the grid.
Why don't you like it?
Ernie Prince was a great lighting designer, though, wasn't he?
The green is completely wrong. They completely overdid the green because they wanted it to feel organic, and you can see in the latest, series 2, 3, etc. They tone it down, and that basically disappears.
Oh, that's all gone. It's more.
They got the green completely wrong.
Yeah,
like it, as having stood on that set, it was a stunning set. It was massive, and it was a beautiful thing with lots of lovely details. But it was the lighting in series 1 that killed it, because that green, given there are quite a few scenes on the TARDIS, just killed it.
It feels too dark sometimes when you're in it. I do agree. I think once they light it up, it really come to life a little bit more.
That's really interesting what this one is saying there. It felt too dark because for years, actually, some of us that were watching
too bright.
Too light. It's too light. In fact, some of the fans of our generations, if you like the Enlightenment set more when the TARDIS power is being drained in the Fifth Doctor story, and the whole room is bathed in orange. And I remember a lot of fans in 1983 going, "That's how it should look all the time."
Oh, that lovely Rebus operation when the doors open and the lights come down. That's superb as well. Really nice.
Oh, it is, isn't it? It is. Interesting stuff here. Leo James Ward also saying to us, RTD exposing his own fantasies about his male leads in The Way Jack and later 10 and 15. Well, that's a debate that's going to go for a long time, isn't it, Leo? I don't know. It was certainly the start of where it's going to now. Graham is saying to us, I quite like the ghost story one with Charles Dickens in Victorian Cardiff. That was good too. I mean, again, I thought that was wonderful because it set a template that was copied for many years after, but it was actually lovely to see the quality of what they were doing here. It looked really good, I thought, the Dickens episode. And then to have Simon Callow coming into the show, I was a bit thrilled by that, actually. I thought, oh my God, this thing is, I think it was because of Eccleston's draw.
And that episode is beautifully lit as well. The bits in the funeral parlor are superb. The atmosphere, it's just beautifully shot, really nice. Eros Lind does a great job on this.
It was, but for me, it was more of, well, this is Doctor Who.
Yeah. I mean, that pre-title sequence bit's superb, isn't it? Really good. Yeah.
This bit here was wonderful with the and then crash into the titles, which is also a bit of a culture shock, by the way. We got the end title music at the very beginning of the show on this one. This was really weird. But no, I thought I'm with you. What do you think, Milo, on that one?
I think it goes to show Mark Gatiss, whatever you think, I know his quality of clips are pretty generally met. He does know the structure of a Doctor Who story, and he's a great fit for writing a Victorian-based story. I do agree. I think it's one of the stronger episodes. It's a good historical And I think the Gelf actually, given the context of the kind of time war and the fact that they pretend to be nice and then they turn out to be evil, and then somebody sacrifices themselves. Well, kind of sacrifices themselves, even though they're technically dead at the end. It's a really good. It's really good, and I think they obviously overdo the kind of showing the historical figure at the end, the TARDIS, and then whether it has an impact on their life afterwards. I know they obviously do that with visiting the Doctor and other episodes, so it was overdone. But I do think it's a really modern way of doing a historical, and I think it works.
You say it's a modern way, but to me it was more of a throwback, really, because at that very end, you've just mentioned there, yes, you lose a main character that you've grown to like in the show, and it's you can sort of say, right, she's deliberately there because she's going to get bumped off. You just knew it. Well, I did, certainly. But I love the way at the very end it actually goes right back to where the Doctor usually is. He gets over it very quickly, moves on. Just goes.
I love the bits of the TARDIS materializing in the snow, then leaving Charles Dickens. That's beautifully done.
Yes, that was the first time we'd ever been able to see that, weren't we? The snow drifts off the panes of the police box.
That was really lovely, yeah.
That was quite nicely done, and I thought that was nicely thought about. The whole thing about the TARDIS materializing, the gusts of wind that come around it now, we'd never had that before, and I quite like those little touches.
Really works, I think. Yeah.
Carwyn is saying to us, I keep forgetting the long game. Join the club. It's an episode that just doesn't stick with me. It's a shame, really, because the long game is actually fairly important, because they returned to it for the last 2 episodes of the season, so it should have been set up a little bit better.
Was the long game written by him and actually sent to GNT for possible use in one of McCoy's seasons?
I've no idea. I
remember reading that somewhere, that he presented it to GNT for a possible storyline, but got rejected.
Well, anyway, I'm saying nothing. Mudcrap is saying, I am going out on a limb, but I hated the Unquiet Dead. The Dickens stuff was good, but the Doctor ends up crying in the corner and has to have Rose hold his hand because he was scared. It was rubbish. And Stephen Braddock saying, I loved the Unquiet Dead. That's when I thought, this is a classic. Zombies on Saturday night. Well, if you went to the pubs I was going to on a Saturday night, you would have seen the zombies there for live, I tell you, every week. Back in the day, honestly. Wow, there was so much packed into this series, though, wasn't it? And Steve Hindley saying to us, this all happened in a parallel universe, and the 8th Doctor is still traveling around in his Jules Verne TARDIS. That's the other thing they got right. There were certain things they learned from the TV movie, I felt, for this one. One of the main things I think they learned was the introduction of the TARDIS, because she does the classic walk around. I think they've overused it lots of times since, but she does the classic walk around to remind the audience, as if we didn't know, but also to introduce the new ones as well, to the fact this thing is going to be a bit of a shock for you when you walk into this. And for the first time outside of a documentary, we actually got to go through the door with the companion, which was a nice touch. I thought little things like that had been thought about, and it was done so much better than it was done, I feel, in the 96 thing. I don't know. Oh, well, that's killed the conversation.
I don't know.
I was going to say, I think for me personally, I don't think it does quite work as yet. It works better later on in the series, but not at this point. Certainly not in Rhodes. It's a bit meh, I think, the way they did it.
Oh, okay.
I think the lesson of the TV movie is you start with a new Doctor rather than seeing the old one fail, regenerate, and it being 20, 30 minutes before you actually see your new incarnation. You just start with Christopher Eccleston. He's the Doctor, and you go from there.
Yeah, I think that was the way to go, certainly.
It's certainly a superb way to bring him in, isn't it? With the whole run, and then they run, and then he introduces himself in this scene a little bit later. I'm the Doctor, by the way. Run for your life, and
that's very telling line now, don't you think?
Well, yeah. But at the time, I remember thinking that's a great line, because it actually sums up who the Doctor is. Run, get out of here, go back.
It's got a different context nowadays, though, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember wondering at the time if that was like a sly throwback to Patrick Troughton, because that was always one of his favourite lines as well. When I say run, run.
It's I think it's brilliant, and I'm so glad they put it all in. Hi to Rory and Cheryl and friends too. Nice to see you. Dom goes saying, I had no problems with the TARDIS interior. SG saying to us, I prefer any of the classic TARDIS sets. Arthur saying to us, lighting and how scenes are presented is a challenge, but it's a necessary one. Yeah, well, yeah. I can't stand, says Paul Stenford, the control room from this season with comedy bicycle pump attachment on the console and lump hammer. Give me strength. It got worse with Matt Smith, didn't it? I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Agreeing with you, Bedway. Mudcrab says the color palette, it looks off in these photos. I don't get the depth. And Legion of James, the TARDIS interior was awful and the console nonsense, just stupid. The first TARDIS interior in New Who, I thought they got Capaldi's was the one he thought he got right. Yeah, that was more to my liking as well. Captain Hathorn, what are you saying to us? I think Matt Smith's TARDIS looks great. The new interior looks pretty good. Well, we're not getting to that one yet. We'll have to save that till that's 20. Not far off, actually, by the way. But yeah. At least Mrs. Pertwee is saying to us, actually, Kirsty, it sounds like the panel didn't like this season. So many nitpicks just to say you don't like Eccleston's season.
No, I do.
Yeah, I like it as well. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but I do like it, I have to say, yeah.
I have to say, I like it. I don't watch it often, but I do like it. So, but yeah, there are nitpicks in it, but we're looking at 20 years ago. So you know,
I think there's more good than bad for me personally, I have to say. Yeah.
I don't dislike it. I'm indifferent to it because I didn't engage with it that much. My lasting memory of it was Christopher Eccleston. To me, had the potential to be an absolutely on the nose Doctor, absolutely brilliant in the role, but the way the series was structured with the Doctor as a secondary character just worked against him. And for me, if it was the other way around and the Doctor was the lead, for me, I would have engaged with it much, much more than I did.
I think it's great that we're able to now look back at 20 years ago with the benefit of hindsight, with the benefit that we know where it's gone, with the benefit that we know also about some of the stories that happened during the production. I'm saying some because there's a lot more that is to come out all these years later. Yeah, so I think that's why these season overviews, we do the same with all the season overviews. It's a great way of looking back. So I don't think we're being too harsh on it at all, personally. And certainly Emilio, Kirsty Miles, they were born into this. And it's
I do think, to George, to the point that keep coming up around the Doctor being a secondary character, in some episodes I would agree, but I do think the major themes of the season all do tie back to the Doctor. You know, mainly speaking, in terms of, you know, there's a whole arc on the Time War, and that's a massive storyline for the season. And you know, I personally think it doesn't. I think it's great that RTD basically kind of filled a little bit of the void of what happened in the wilderness years. You know, what's happened between Paul McGann and this Doctor. Okay, this Doctor's, you know, it's gone through. You know, it brought a bit of a kind of an emotional depth to the Doctor that he didn't necessarily have it in Classic Who. It brought something different to the new series to make it, you know, to show that it's still the same show, but you know, there has been something that's gone off green, and the Doctor is different to the one that you saw before. And I think it does a really good job of just elevating the drama in the season. So, and I think the whole season is built around the Doctor, the Daleks, him finding out obviously in Dalek that you know the Dalek survived, and then only one Dalek, and then a whole fleet, and him having to basically have the choice of destroying them, destroying humanity and the Daleks again, and basically going, you know what, I'm a coward, you know, I'm the Doctor. The Doctor doesn't go around basically killing or committing genocide. So the whole story arc is about the Doctor. I just think they've just maybe got sometimes the balance a little bit wrong in terms of trying to give the companion maybe too much weight at certain points. But I think we can forget that the season is about the Doctor.
I think the Time War idea was a lovely way to start, give the series a clean slate. So you don't have the baggage of Classic a little bit. You could start fresh, which gave it that kind of mystery a bit as well, which is good.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting point. Personally, I don't think it needed it myself. I remember at the end of that second episode, when all this is coming out, I thought, right, so what's going to happen there then? And I do know as well that when Russell told Lorraine Heggessy at the BBC that's the Time Lords were gone, she was terribly upset. Oh, we're never going to get to see Gallifrey. Oh, we're never going to get to see the Master. She was terrible, and she said something along the lines, "Is that wise?" And he was insistent, "No, it's going to be set. No, it's going to be set." But to me, it comes across more like a Virgin novel. You know, I think it's too fanish. I don't think necessarily having to erase at that point through this time war was, which the Time Lords lost. I didn't think it was necessary. I mean, it's only the fans that's going to get that stuff. The public wouldn't have cared even back then, and they certainly don't now because they brought it back God knows how many times. It's very
and then
confusing.
destroyed it again. Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, let's ask Kirsty, Emilio, and Miles. When you heard that the Doctor's race and planet was gone, did that add an extra element of mystery for you, or was it just like, okay, well, whatever?
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Go. Carry on. Give me the answer.
Right.
I think it created, the Doctor very clearly. You over the series you find out more. I think definitely up to the first 6 episodes, and obviously you don't know exactly what's happened and all the details, and the Doctor quite, let's say, especially also later on in the New Year series, he doesn't like to talk about it too much, or it creates a bit of a distance between him and the companion, right? It adds something to the mystery beyond, who is the Doctor, where does he, the origins and all of that kind of stuff. So I do think it adds to it.
It was also a case that, when I heard about this, I thought there's only one. It's pretty obvious who the war was with. There was only one race in Doctor Who history that could actually exterminate the Time Lords. It was pretty obvious that it was teasing up into that. Thanks there for Legion of James for that one as well. Garbage is with us saying, I remember watching season 1 thinking, is this connected to the classic? Does McGann fit into the canon? Kev Gresham saying to us, hi, Rose was good. Intro, I felt the 45-minute episode runtime worked better when they had parts. When they're on their own, they felt rushed to finish with the endings that were a bit anticlimactic. You'll all know I'm not a fan of the 45-minute format, especially today. I would like to go back to the 25-minute, 30-minute format and have a serial based on all this. Right, Charlie was saying to us that I was really happy with no Gallifrey, and Farsight saying to us the Time War was more or less nicked from the novels. I think a lot of stuff was, to be quite honest. It tried to be more what the Virgin novels had been, in my eyes, this series. Not quite the full hog, obviously, but it was trying to be that little bit more, oh, look at us. It's a little bit more grown up than it last was in 89. Leo James Ward saying, the Time War became a millstone, and now we're expected to believe the Master succeeded where the Daleks failed. It's ridiculous. I don't get that reference. That's obviously something that's happened. And Gallifrey has been bumped off more times than Kenny, says Julianne. Hello, Julianne. And RTD was obsessed with making the Doctor special. He had to be the last of the Time Lords, says Dongo. Now, it was quite funny, actually, because back in the 90s, of course, we'd heard about the unmade film from Greenlight Productions, which was called Doctor Who, Last of the Time Lords.
Yeah, I was just going to say there was that unmade script. Which it was Caroline Munro's production company, wasn't it? Her and her husband.
It was Greenlight, wasn't it? So
yeah, which was Caroline Munro and her husband.
Yeah, and she was going to be in it as well, wasn't she?
Yes, because it's bizarre to think at one time Caroline Munro actually held the rights to Doctor Who.
Would they have right issues when they brought it back because of that film? Because that film was ongoing for a very long time, wasn't it?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah,
I've seen somewhere there was some pre-production. It got to the point where there was pre-production artwork for it. There was a logo device and all sorts, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had the rights for so many years. I mean, what they have to do. They have to at least start filming to retain those rights, and obviously they didn't. And that was one of the examples, because eventually that's where Amblin started to. Yeah. And because at the time the Spielberg name was brought around, that's where the BBC went. Right, thanks very much. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the focus from there on in, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because again, I seem to remember hearing the BBC bought the rights back from Caroline Munro's company, so they could do the deal, which eventually became the Paul McGann movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I remember these sorts of things as well. But it's interesting that Russell, obviously around at the same time of us, liked that idea of the Last of the Time Lords and then incorporated it into his version. Yeah, I mean, I still think the series would have worked had he never visited Gallifrey, as he was still on the run from these people. I didn't think he had to blow them up. But it would have been a lot easier. I mean, this is what I say sometimes about fans. They get too, oh my God, we're going to put this in. just maybe calm down sometimes. I'd say. What's that from Paul Stenterford? The Time War was going to be between the Time Lords and the Toclafane in case the BBC couldn't get the rights to the Daleks. Well, that was true, wasn't it? Because at one point, of course, they didn't have the rights to the Daleks, and it took a while. Now, I guarantee you, had JNT been around, he would advise them of how to deal with the Terry Nation estate and get the rights to the Daleks, because JNT knew everything about it. And I still can't believe, and at the time I was thinking, surely somebody knew how to do this. They don't belong to the BBC. They are part owned by the Nation estate, and they just didn't seem to. I'm shocked with Russell and Phil, who were apparently fans. They didn't know that.
I think the issue, again, I seem to remember hearing was, they didn't put enough noughts on the check initially. But going on from what Bedweir was saying about appealing to a wide audience, one thing in addition to the soap opera element, I think brought viewers back was the fact that the Daleks were back in it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to have the Daleks.
Because I can remember, when it was in general conversation back in 2005, one of the most frequent questions I heard, or one of the most frequent comments was, are the Daleks back in it?
Yeah. And yet, strangely, at one point, everybody, you might not be aware, you youngsters, but the Daleks weren't, because they didn't have the rights. So they had to go into production without the Daleks in the show. Luckily, as we now know, they resolved the issues with a fantastic deal for the Nation estate. Well done to them. Hence why you get Daleks in every single season up until recently.
Yes. And Terry Nation's son and daughter live a very comfortable life. Thank you very much.
Good for them. Good for them. but there's also a reason why you haven't seen them yet as well, because anyway, that's another show, isn't it? But anyway, but it was clever. I mean, what are your thoughts on? I mean, we had some people in the chat talking about Dalek. This was a massive episode. It was a very again, it was. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is something completely different. I loved actually Dalek as an episode. I think it's very, very good. Yeah. I was never expecting to get upset over a Dalek, though.
One thing I will sing the praises of the series coming back in 2005 was the not redesign, but the new slant on the actual Dalek. I mean, when that first appeared, I thought, oh, that's the first thing I thought was somebody's been watching the movies, because it's very clearly based on the particularly the second movie.
Yeah.
Apparently, I remember seeing in one of the confidentials that I think Russell said to the designers, choose all elements that you like of the Daleks and put them into it, and that's what they did. And all the elements are mixed of different kind of designs. And the film Daleks look superb, with the lights and everything superb. But this bronze look is amazing.
Well, I was just relieved.
And when we get Dalek set later on, even better, I have to say. Yeah.
I was just relieved when this picture was released. Now, this was in the sun.
I remember that. Yeah.
And this is when I went, oh, thank God, it's a Dalek.
I remember when I first saw them, I thought, if you stuck a claw on that would be a movie Dalek.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were going to be bronze forever. Well, I'm thinking that's a different color, but there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, I love them in silver and blue rather than bronze.
Yeah. But I love them in silver and blue.
Apart from that.
And then suddenly they were everywhere. You walked into Woolworths, any shop, and there was a shelf full of Daleks.
Yeah, I mean, and that was brilliant to live through here in the UK, wasn't it? Suddenly, your favourite show that you've been supporting for years off air was suddenly everywhere. It was plastered everywhere, and all these toys were coming. It was a very, actually, I'm going to use the word magic. It was a very, and I was very proud at that point as well, thanks to Eccleston's work and Piper's work and how big it was, and people were watching. The week, and I've mentioned this before, but there was a particular week. The week between Bad Wolf and the parting of the ways was intense in this country. I had complete acquaintances popping up to me all the time. What's going on? What's going on? The BBC even introduced that countdown for that week. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The countdown to the final episode. It was massive. It was intense. So to the younger ones, to Miles, to Kirsty, to Amelia, what did you think of the Daleks when they turned up in Dalek episode 6?
I think it was a great way to introduce the Dalek. I think especially when the Doctor goes in, I think it's called the cage, and he goes in and it was pitch black and all you can see was the blue little dot, and then it starts to speak and then it just starts flashing, and I think it was a brilliant way to bring the Daleks. But I think that Dalek was obviously particularly quite scary. I think, for myself at the time. And I think the anger that this current Doctor had towards this Dalek was just immense when he's shouting at it, why don't you just die? And so much hatred towards it. I think it's fantastic. But that is, I really, really like this episode.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it does a great job of mirroring the Doctor against the Dalek, right? He said, I know what you need, exterminate, and everything explores. The Dalek says, you would have made a good Dalek to the Doctor.
Great line.
It does a great job. But I think most importantly, having one Dalek show that it can basically kill everybody, that is untouchable, that, what used to be a joke around, the plunger and,
the plunger moment was brilliant.
Exactly. Or the fact that he couldn't go up the stairs. They basically went, what does everyone, maybe in the wilderness years or before think was stupid about the Daleks, and, people will just, take the mick of. And basically they just addressed that in the episode Dalek and said, look, the Daleks are serious. You don't only look at what one can do, let alone a fleet. And I think that was a great way to really kind of show the threat that the Daleks have, and that obviously pays off when they come back at the end of the season.
I can't speak for Bedouin or Paul or George, but I remember in this episode with all the lines you've just mentioned there, Emilio, thinking, at last, that's what we wanted to hear on screen. This is what we need to see on screen. That whole thing with the sucker as well, that really took me by surprise. I thought that's what we've been hinted at for decades, and there we've just seen it. That's what they do with the blooming thing, as well as use it as a tool. I thought that was absolutely superb, and I'm glad you all got a little bit scared at that, because that's what that episode should have done. The Daleks are there to scare you, which is probably why they're not allowed in the new series, but they are there to frighten you. Do you know what I mean?
What it showed as well, the fact that Daleks are very clever. I mean, that sequence where he sets up the sprinklers come on, then he electrocutes the floor, and then electrocutes everyone. That's superb, really cleverly done, and shows how cunning and scary these monsters can be. Really,
and the fact that this one thinks it's on its own.
Yeah.
There's that beautiful interaction where it first realizes the Doctor, and that's where you sort of think, and I love Eccleston's performance. This is the Doctor. You know instantly something really bad's gone on here, because he's never been that terrified of a Dalek in a room before. And I love the way Eccleston played it, because that's how he should be. These are his old enemies. He's known these things for millennia, and he's come up trumps so many times, as we all know as fans of the show. And here's the one. I loved it. I just thought this shows the relationship between the Daleks and the Doctor, and he is terrified of them when he has to be. Absolutely. So he must be so brave every other time when he's standing up to them, looking right down at them,
There's one thing that still makes me laugh even to this day, is the fact that Dalek absorbed the entire internet. That's a bit of a worry, I have to say.
That must have been quite quick at the time. When is it set? It's set now, isn't it?
In 2012.
2012, yeah.
Yeah, 2012.
It was the Olympics.
Yeah. There's the little Dalek mutant sitting in its cases going, add to basket.
Yes, exactly. The Spice Girls were back. Right, Charlie's saying to us here, didn't the nation sell the rights to the BBC? No. I've not. If the Terry Nation estate ever sold the rights to the BBC, we'd all know about it. They would be incredibly daft to do that. There's no way they could do that.
Even when the show was off air for 15 years, whatever it was, the Daleks were way too lucrative to give the rights away.
Exactly.
Every time a video or a DVD sold, every time one of the movies got screened, every time a toy was sold, some money went into the nation estate pocket. It was just,
and it's still like that now.
Yeah,
they get a healthy amount of money. They're not going to sell the rights to Daleks to the BBC. Not a chance.
Because the original deal, which, as far as I'm aware, stands to this day, is the royalties are a 50-50 split between the nation estate and the BBC.
Yes.
Now, remember, in the space of a year, Terry Nation went from living in a 3-bedroom detached house in Ealing to a country pile with its own acreage from the royalties from Dalek merchandise, and became a multi-millionaire. You know what sort of level of money we're talking about.
Yeah. And of course, the explosion of 2005 onwards. I mean, we've been up in the last year talking about the Dalek models from Character Options are still there. It's still hugely popular, and it's this episode that helped for that huge success. if anything was going to help a big series of Doctor Who, it was the right casting of the Doctor and the Daleks. It was essential they had the Daleks in it. Legion of James is saying to us, Eccleston's performance when he faced that Doctor was phenomenal. And his Dongo from 2005 onwards, I had Dalek everything, mugs, pillowcases, curtains, wallpaper, you name it, I had it. Yeah, including things like this. Look at this. That's a lunchbox. Look at this. That's a backpack that I could never get on my back, but I had to have it because it was quite nice. Anyway, there we go.
That's primary school. We used to have people with Dalek pack lunchboxes and stuff like that.
Yes, you got everything. Everything.
I have to say, at that time, walking through a Woolworths and seeing a shelf full of Daleks just made me smile in a big way.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
That to me just said, even though I wasn't rushing to clear the shelf and buy them myself, that to me just said, Doctor Who's back and it's a success again.
Well, that's what I was quite proud. You remember those Toys R Us things that were going on, especially in 2006, because of the success of this. It was Woolworths was the first to really capture on, and I never thought I would see the day, guys, where in the shops you just had shelves to do with Doctor Who, and coming from our point of view, where there was practically nothing, or you had to go to a specialist shop like the Who shop or Galaxy 4 or 10th Planet to get your merchandise. Here it was.
And a brown paper bag as well, so no one could see what you were buying.
Brilliant.
I remember seeing all the action figures and everything from the new series, looking at them and thinking, oh, if only they do that for like John Pertwee and Tom Baker's time.
And they did.
Yes, patience. Patience is a virtue when it comes to those who wait.
Yeah, because they suddenly realise, there's another market there as well. Really clever. Julianne is saying to us, Dalek was a standout episode. Mark Postgate, nice to see you. I found the merchandising a bit nauseating after a while. It was just too much, and it felt like overwhelming, like chocolate at Christmas. I do know what you mean because it was everywhere. I have to say, Mark, there was a particular point where I was standing in Superdrug in queue, ready to buy a $2.99 bubble bath. And that's when I thought, you've got to stop this. You've got to.
You could get tins of pasta shapes with Doctor Who on it, couldn't you? Things like that.
You can. I've got them over there. They're a bit rusty, but I've got them. And you could get Froobs as well to get the kids eating the yogurt. Did it work? I don't know. Stephen Braddock, Kirsty, she's still got the Froobs. I've still got a packet of them over there. It's terrible.
I've still got the Weetabix and Thai food tea.
Yeah. Stephen I love all the scenes, says Stephen Braddock, of the Daleks slaughtering the soldiers by rotating and electrifying them. So scary as it's just one Dalek. Now that was absolutely superb stuff. The way they, as George was saying, the way they designed the Dalek, put it together, superb. Do you remember the earlier character option ones, the big ones? You could turn them in the middle. Remember? You don't do that anymore, but you could do that. And Paul Rose saying to us, you absolutely need horror elements and scares to be proper Doctor Who, in my opinion. Well, here. And I think they managed to do that, actually. Once you got through episode 1, the Unquiet Dead started to bring the scares in, the gentle scares, certainly by Dalek in episode 6. Yeah. It's gone crazy with the horror content.
I'd imagine for kids, and maybe our youngsters who could tell us with the next story, the Aliens of London, did you find the Slovene scary? Because all this zip stuff and all that, could have been quite scary for the kids, but not for me being an adult. But did you find it scary?
No.
No. Why wouldn't you be scared of farting aliens that have zips when they,
Well, I think the face, that kind of baby face they've got, is quite disturbing. I think, but yeah.
I think there's some scenes where I think when they're running, I don't know, they run really far to attack, and they should have done a little bit more with that, because they could have been potentially scary. And as you said, Paul, they've got these kind of like cute little faces.
Yeah,
you could turn that into something that's really malevolent and evil. There's something there in that. They just look, to be honest, they just look too generic aliens, green with the eyes and everything. It just, and back to Sarah Jane Adventures, I think, where they bring back the baby, the
little one, yeah.
Little one.
Was there an element of, when you were in the design stage with the monsters, will this make a good action figure? Can we license it?
I bet we will. Yeah.
You know what? They actually need to get that business mind back on. Really, what's going to look like? What's going to be a good monster, not a fantasy. I mean, are you going to buy something that looks like an owl? Not really. The kids want them. And it's weird actually, because I remember reading in Doctor Who magazine that they'd actually gone out to do something that would attract the youngsters with the Slovene. These were supposed to be monsters that were kiddie friendly, and I don't know anybody of their generation that actually liked them really. Like these three, they're all like meh, meh. Bring back the Daleks.
I didn't mind them in Boomtown. It was just the one, because there was a different director on that one. That was a bit more atmospheric,
Yeah.
But that's down to Annette as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic performance from her. And I did very late because I remember RTD saying he was so pleased that they got her for the Aliens of London 2-parter. And she was so good, he had to get her back quickly. Hence the Boomtown episode.
Yeah.
That scene in Boomtown when they're having the Ninth Doctor and her are in the restaurant and she tries to, and it's like knows a bit of magic. The book going on. That's fantastic.
See, when you get two brilliant actors, Kirsty, who love in the part and know how to hold the script, there it is there. Isn't it fantastic?
There's a bit early on in that episode, Boomtown, where I think the Slovene's sitting on the toilet and that she's going to slaughter the journalist. Right. And she's really emotional sitting on the toilet. That's so well done. And it's a rubber creature. It's really well done and really, really well directed.
And I love the
gravitas, you know?
On that, Paul, I love the speech from the Doctor where he says, from time to time, you will let somebody go. And it was a real kind of moral kind of debate, basically, between the two characters. And I thought that played really, really well when she would like, I saved somebody. That means I can be good. And it's like, well,
I love that one. He just jumped out of the window and then the assistant's like, she's not here. And he's like, he says something like, she's outside, isn't she? And then that's that whole chase scene as well. Yeah. It's taking the kind of light-hearted comedy episodes but with a twist as well. So yeah, Boomtown's really enjoyable.
It really is. I actually like it because it's a slight break.
Yeah.
There are 2 heavy episodes coming up after it. But also I quite like the fact it's a character piece, and I love Annette Badland. I will watch Annette Badland reading the Pools. Do we still do the Pools? Or the telephone director? Oh, do we still do the telephone director? I would watch her doing that because I just love her. I think she's such a beautiful actor. And here she is in Doctor Who. And again, this was another thing where I went, oh my God, they've got Annette Badland. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And she's going to be with Chris Eccleston. Wow. So that's why I love Boomtown, because just what a performance. Tim Kins, I didn't know this. The Slovene were nearly the monsters in the Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. Thank God they didn't.
Phew.
Wow.
That was a narrow squeak.
Yeah. Bill Larry saying to us, the movement between the CGI Slovene and the practical costumes was very noticeable. Yes, even more so today, I'm afraid, because they're better in CGI. They really, really are. Jeremy, music is all. Nice to see you. Notice how Daleks are at their scariest when they are silent, strangely showing more evil through non-dialogue, just subtle eye stalk movement.
Oh, that choir sound effect they had, that kind of choir singing, the choral stuff.
That was new, wasn't it?
That was lovely. That was really nice, yeah.
The Dalek theme was new with that choir. We hadn't heard anything like that before in Doctor Who, had we?
The one thing I didn't like, and I think it was from the very first Dalek episode in 2005, was that motorized whir every time they moved, like they were radio controlled or something. It's like the Daleks should move silently. They shouldn't be revving up a motor and having that sort of dodging car.
Wait till they start on the Cybermen, George.
Oh yeah. I do know what you mean there. Yeah, they should be, because I'm never. Do they still do that? I haven't seen the Daleks in Doctor Who for some time, because as Lisa Pertwee is pointing out to me here, you missed the female Daleks in Jodie's run, JT, which I don't know if I want to know, but
I must have missed that as well, because there weren't any.
I can't remember a female Dalek.
No, I don't remember that.
That's fake news.
What that reminded of those of a certain age was the Dennis Fisher range of figures in the 1970s. The Dalek was like a friction drive one, and you sort of like revved it up and then let it go, and it shot across the table with that sort of whirring sound.
Yeah,
that's what it was like.
There should be a big key in the back of the Dalek, shouldn't there? Kind of thing. Yeah.
I love that bit where the bullets were melting on the thing, though.
That was lovely, yeah.
Wasn't that a great touch? I mean, this is the thing that technology was able to do, because this is all in our minds as kids back in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s. But here to see it on screen was just, I remember thinking, oh, wow, this is so good. That is so lovely to do. Fantastic.
You know what Dalek does really well as well is you actually feel really bad for the Dalek at the end of the episode when it kills itself.
I want to come to that in a sec.
It's very emotional. Yeah.
Right. Thanks to this stream, I will rewatch season 1, 2005, all episodes tonight, says Lisa Pertwee.
In one go.
Good luck. I mean, it's definitely worth rewatching. I think definitely. I mean, I've been watching several of them ready for the show to remind myself what it is and what was going on. I was quite I was quite impressed by a lot of it, to be honest. Apart from the stuff I was talking about before, I think it looks okay. I think it looks good. Lex Kane, thanks for your super chat. Doctor was upset with the soldiers killing a pig alien, and that does tie in with what Amelia was starting to talk about there as well. Actually, that whole where Rhodes questions him at the end of Dalek, "What are you, Doctor? What are you becoming? What are you changing into?" Again, that was a bit of a difference to the character here. It did really hit you that the Doctor has been through something we haven't seen on screen. It was pretty heavy, this stuff, but it was very emotional. That's what I'm saying, Emilio. I was quite shocked that I was feeling sorry for a bloody Dalek.
Yeah.
It is. You kind of the fact that I think it really get the point across that a Dalek mutating into something else is for a Dalek is like being infected with the plague. It's just like the worst thing that can happen to a Dalek, and they just wanted to feel the light, and and the fact that at that point of the series, it was the last Dalek. Obviously, they came back, but I think it did a really good job of actually selling what the Daleks are. That they and actually the way that they're genetically built is it turned on its head a little bit, and actually you actually feel sorry for the fact that it's not a Dalek at the end of it, which I think is quite interesting.
It was a very interesting difference, I think, for us old hands as well. Here was a different aside, which even the books and the CDs hadn't done. And at the end of it, you get this fella.
Well, that's interesting. See the Emperor. I was spoiled by that. I was on a train commuting to work, and I picked up. Someone left a daily record on the table on the train. And I opened it up, and inside was a picture of this bugger here, and I was spoiled rotten. And it's such a fantastic update of the Emperor. It's really good.
And it was so small.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an example of a beautiful model, and it travelled for years. Bedouin, did it eventually get to the experience when you were there?
It was for a little bit. I think it was, yeah.
I wonder if Mike's still got it now, because it travelled all over all over Britain. I don't know if it went out of Britain, but I was really fascinated because the detail on the thing, on the model, was superb. Even that little blobby mutant in it as well, so detailed and so much time taken over it. But I just imagine that the kids watching this must have been thrilled when the lights go up and there's this big, because a lot of fans of our age were going, "Oh, it's Davros." Oh, of course it wasn't Davros. It was a different voice, you idiots. They were saving that one for much later on,
And what they did for us older fans is gave the Emperor Daleks black domes as well, like an evil, which is superb. Lovely little touch.
Also a good character option figure to come as well.
Yeah.
I really remember watching this and thinking, when we got to this scene, after sitting through Rose Tyler and her mum eating chips, having a big in-depth heart-to-heart and all that sort of stuff, I looked at it, I thought, now we're cooking with gas. This is it.
Was it a surprise for you then, you three? Was the Emperor Dalek a real surprise for you guys when you saw this? Can you remember?
Yeah, I'm pumped back then, still pumped if I watch this again. It was fantastic. And the whole kind of conversation as well, when he's like, killer or coward.
At the end.
Coward any day. Yeah.
Kind of thing. Still phenomenal. Still, it transports me back to watching it when it was broadcast and thinking, this is absolutely the dog's cojones, and this is just like really peak me getting into like science fiction and whatnot as well, and just can't complain.
Well, it did the trick with Kirsty then. What about you two lads?
From my side, I love the voice. It's obviously a lot deeper, which I think adds a lot of weight. I like the fact that they're obviously going at the fact that the Daleks, kind of worship him, the Emperor, right? If I remember correctly. And he's like, the Doctor goes, I've been one of your angels and stuff like that. So there's a kind of to show that the Daleks have gone kind of mad, and they've had to basically take in human. If I remember correctly, they took in human beings, right, and basically converted them. So and the Doctor said they hate their own existence. That makes them more dangerous. I think the kind of whole thematics around the Emperor of the Dalek and the kind of God, conversation, I think, works really, really well in the episode. So I think it's a shame we never got the Emperor Dalek back after that. Yeah.
There are some lovely Dalek moments though in these two episodes, isn't there? I mean, the bit with Linda, where the Daleks come up at the window and they hear them say exterminate from space and she gets killed. That is wonderfully done.
The big booming Emperor voice was another cue taken from the movies. That was definitely very, very reminiscent of a movie Dalek voice. And the dialogue that it was given, I can't remember it word for word, I'm paraphrasing, but when the Emperor Dalek saying, the human race was filleted, pulped, distilled. Okay, you're not leaving much to the imagination here. It's really selling how evil, how obsessed the Daleks are with survival.
Yeah.
And I thought that worked really well.
The fact I also knew it was the Emperor at the end of that particular episode was because Nick Briggs, of course, had done the exact same voice for the Emperor in the audios.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew he was going to come back. I much prefer how the Emperor Dalek looks in Evil of the Dalek, says Paul Stenford. I'm not too keen on the design from this season, and it doesn't look as believable to me. Oh, fair enough. Okay. I do like it. I think it was quite nice. And Daleks being mad and religious, says Rory and Cheryl. It's those speeches that the guys have all talked about there that made me realize these Daleks are utter lunatics. They are really dangerous, absolutely dangerous. So thank you for that. And what else we got there? Stephen, behave yourself. He's saying, would you look at the size of that thing, Doctor? Yeah. Mudcrab is saying Linda with a Y was hard done by. There were a couple of companions in this series that were hard done by. You had the young lady, of course, that was in The Empty Child as well.
Yeah.
And you had Adam, didn't you?
Yeah, Joe Joyner was brilliant. There's a lovely moment where she kind of becomes a companion, and there's a bit where she gives an answer that Rose is about to give, but she beats her to it. That's a lovely moment. That's
and Rose's look at her as well.
It's like, that's my job.
Linda with the Y starts to back off, actually, when she realizes how dangerous the Doctor is and what's going around with him and these Daleks and stuff. It's not as pretty as she thought it was.
Yeah.
She starts, all I want to do is go home. Do you notice that bit in there as well, where she failed the audition? The other one, of course, we have to mention him because you mentioned in the chat. The other one that failed the audition was Adam. What a waste of space he made. I mean, what was he was deliberately written to be annoying, and by God, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He really was. I mean, did anybody like him?
Nope. No. I like the clicking the fingers gag at the end, though. That was very funny.
That's hilarious.
I wonder where he is today, Adam. Adam, if you're watching.
Brain. There you go. Yeah, I know.
Was that the Adric style companion reborn?
Yes, definitely. I remember thinking that at the time, George, thinking this is a real slagging off of Adric. It has to be. It really has to be. Lots of good stuff coming about the Daleks, of course. And then we have to talk about this, which Rory and Cheryl and friends are actually prompting here. The immortal line. Now, this became legend in the UK. And I think to this day, but certainly it was around for quite some time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Are you my mummy? Are you my mummy, as we would say here in the UK? Are you my mummy? Wow. I met young kids running around the place saying this all the time. I was just like, this has been a big hit. What a great story, though, these two.
Yeah, and that transition where they become the gas mask creatures, particularly Richard Wilson's one, that's really horrible, isn't it? When it comes fluid comes out of his face, that is incredibly well done. Yeah.
I think the most scary aspect is when the recording's still going and the Doctor's like, the recording stopped and the child is still talking. I remember as a kid, that scared the crap out of you. And even for people
the typewriter moment as well, that types on its own, that's superb.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think this guys was Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Written by, of course, we have to mention him, Stephen Moffat. He wrote these out. But for me, those two episodes, Doctor Who back with a vengeance, though. The bits that you're talking about there, Emilio, even I was getting chills at that time. Just okay, all right, this is great. Where did you tell him to go? Back to his room. Oh, bugger. Superbly played, nicely written. This is when they believed in Doctor Who and believed in the importance of bringing it back properly, I reckon, these writers and production teams, because they put their heart and souls into this to make it look good, to make it feel good. But this Empty Child, for me, wow.
It's also Christopher Eccleston's favourite episode. He believed his Doctor was written the best in the two-parter, because I do think in kind of RTD's kind of he kind of has tried to do for comedy too much, and it quite camp and a bit too hammy. Whereas I think Moffat got the kind of comedic kind of sarcasm, I would say, of the Ninth Doctor quite well, and it's not overdone with the kind of dramatic moment that he had to do in the episode. So I think of all the episodes in the series, they get the balance of the Ninth Doctor, I think, bang on. I think Moffat gets it. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think here's the Ninth Doctor in his element. If anybody says to me, which Ninth Doctor would you recommend out of his episodes, I'd go and say, go and watch The Empty Child, because that for me is the Doctor, and it's Eccleston's Doctor as well. He does things there that are unique to him, even to this day, I reckon.
Everybody lives. Superb. Yeah.
And he's joyful about it as well, isn't he? You know, he's joyful. I know it's part of his arc, but he is joyful. Was Adam played by Bruno Langley, SG? Yes, he was. And Sadeko 24, Empty Child was a bit weird when I first saw it. Didn't quite get it and found Jack off-putting. But it did grow on me in rewatches. It's definitely worth a rewatch now as well, because it's still superb British telly, I reckon. I might be overreacting, but I think it is absolutely.
And is it Florence Hope who plays the young girl? She's really good as well. Yeah.
Oh, see, another companion we could have had and didn't. There's loads of them in Doctor Who, isn't it? Richard Wilson, scary, saying, "Are you my mummy?" So let's say Richard Wilson, I have to say, back then through these episodes, recreated his career. Because everybody was coming, Victor Meldrum, and he's such a good actor. Here he was here doing something totally different. That a huge amount of people watching him going, "Oh my god!"
Because even though One Foot in the Grave had finished by that point, they were like more or less constant reruns on
Still television. Is on now, isn't it? I was watching an episode of it earlier tonight, thinking I've never seen this one. You know, but yeah.
You know, there's also a nice connection between him and the Doctor around being a father, grandfather, and kind of. He's not on screen for that long, but he does a great job.
He really does.
I recommend Tutti Frutti with Richard Wilson's a Scottish television show made in the mid-80s with Robbie Coltrane. Superb, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Very famous show and a huge hit, wasn't it? That one, absolutely fantastic. Kester Joan, Empty Child is like a classic 70s, 80s horror film. And Paul Stenterford was saying, I went to a convention where a kid in a gas mat was freaking everyone out by saying, "Are you my mummy?" That's where I met them. They were at conventions. All these little babies with this great big horrible gas mats going, "Are you my mummy?" No, I'm not. Bugger off. Scary things they were. Horrible it would. So glad that worked. Those would have been rubbish last words, said Bill Lowry.
Great.
And all the stuff about bananas as well. It's just ridiculous.
Good source of potassium.
Yes, I always take a banana to a party. I did and ended up getting thrown out, but we won't go into that. Just for once, says Mudcrap, everyone lives. And then we started getting Everyone Living by Magic Reset every season finale. Carmen wants to say, can we burn the psychic paper? Well, what is that about?
Yeah.
According to Russell, it saves time having that and the sonic screwdriver. It saves time. I still with JNT, anything like that, get rid of it.
Use your imagination, writers, please. Thank you.
The I can't remember which one it is, but one of the audio commentaries that Barry Letts did, he said he was very conscious when he was producing not to fall in the trap of making the sonic screwdriver a magic wand that could do anything and everything. And that's unfortunately exactly what it is in New Who.
Well, it's also a marketing device, isn't it? Because how many reiterations of the toy have we got now?
Yeah.
You've got different colours now as well, haven't you? So.
Yeah.
In this season, the sonic screwdriver is actually very, very limited in this season. It is not used as a magic wand. It's really used very kind of basically. I think the most complex thing we see it do is, kind of there's a setting for reattaching barbed wire in the Empty Child.
Barbed wire, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not weighed around like a magic wand. I do agree, George. It just, once you get to like Matt Smith era, it literally just it's like Harry Potter, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it always seemed to be whenever I caught an episode, the denouement was, whatever the issue was, it was cleared up by the Doctor going, "Oh, hang on, I'll put the sonic screwdriver on setting Gamma Alpha 4 and that'll sort it out." And that was it.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's dead sealed. It won't work. There we go.
The other thing I want to talk about in this season, thank you all for joining with us here. We are looking in our season overviews, of course. This is the start of our marking of 20 years of Reboot Who, as I call it, 20 years old this year. Got lots coming up for you in this particular series. It's all on the channel for you over the next few weeks. Make sure you're here with us. But the other thing that I mean, we all noticed this, the bad wolf. I mean, when did people start clicking to this? I actually started clicking around about episode 3 thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I've heard these words before. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't as though this was new to Doctor Who, because we'd had things like The Key to Time and The Trial of a Time Lord. But this certainly was a very fresh thing to take the viewers and reward viewers throughout 13 episodes and give them a payoff at the end. Mm. What did you guys make of it?
I thought it was rather contrived.
Yeah.
Well, they kept it going for years, so something must have gone right.
And then when, in the final episode, I remember when it was revealed how it originated, I remember just looking at the TV screen and thinking, oh, come on, you can do better than that.
Yeah. Have you not seen Day of the Daleks, for goodness sake? You know, yeah.
I do think, I don't mind the kind of subtle approach. I know they did, was it Tortured in season 2? I do think the best one was, I think, personally for me, is in series 3, because the fact that the Master had been in you know, there the whole time, and you can see posters with, you know, vote sacks, and I think that was a much better way of doing it than this way. And I completely agree with George. You know, people complained around the RTD one, you know, kind of, you know, Jesus, the Doctor, you know, magic happens out of nowhere just to solve the plot. So I'm not a massive fan of the Bad Wolf one, but I do think the subtle approach has worked, for example, in season 3.
That's interesting. We've got a lot of people. It's, you know, PTA saying to us here, Bad Wolf really worked. I loved it. Well, I think it was clever for the fact that the public must have done as well, because they brought it back in series 4.
But the question is, did they need it, though, you think?
No. I think it was just that other thing of building up the audience. Again, like we were saying, it's the first year. It was their first series. And let's face it, at that point, when they finished production, they didn't know they were going to be coming back.
Yeah. It
was Lorraine Hegarty, wasn't it, on the night of the 26th of March that said, we're bringing it back, because it got 10 million viewers. That was huge. Everybody, I don't think us fans were that surprised. I certainly wasn't surprised. I was pleased. But I wasn't surprised, because I always knew it was going to be massive, you know, to come back. So I was like, wow, that's great. That's just what we wanted. Yeah, so I think it was just a way for them to bring it in to say, right, if you've been watching all that, here's a payoff, here's a reward. I don't know if it's necessarily, and I think it's now tired, personally, in this day and age, because they're continuing to do it in this next lot, aren't they?
Yeah.
Carwin is saying to us, I still don't think Bad Wolf had a satisfying solve. Okay. What else we got? Bill Lowry saying, Robert Sherman told me they had something inserted into all of their stories, but didn't go into more details. It must have been that then, surely.
There's a tiny bit in Dalek, isn't there? I think it's the name of it's a call sign of the helicopter or something.
The beginning, which the Doctor and Rose don't know. They can't hear it. Robin Calvert say, agree, I never got the Bad Wolf arc. And poor Rose, this is really interesting stuff. The arcs and the convoluted tie-ins got worse over time. Do you know, I'm loving this show because I'm hearing other things to what I've always believed. You know, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't subscribe to this writing theory that across the series, everything has to connect with everything. What's wrong with a good standalone story? Enjoy it for what it is while it's on, then move on to the next one.
Nothing. Yeah. No, I don't think anything wrong with that at all. The one that got me more, I know we're jumping ahead again, but series 5, I didn't like that one at all. What was it? The Crack in the Wall.
Amy's Crack. Yeah, that's
which led to all sorts of jokes on a Saturday night.
Well, exactly.
Mark Postgate saying to us, despite what Emilio says, classic Who fans were already saying the sonnet was already becoming too versatile in series 1. I can hardly remember why now. I don't know, but I would have killed to have the toy back in the 70s. I would have run around with that, I tell you, as a boy. Sadeko24, I assumed Bad Wolf was going to turn out to be something ancient, a race memory of something the TARDIS got involved in prehistoric Earth, witnessed by all the cavemen. Can you imagine the cost on that? That would have been brilliant. Of course, the handy Time Lord skill of pickpocketing, says Peter Venkman. And the band, says Kester Drone, The Cure had Bad Wolf on their stage equipment before 2005. Did they?
So was Rose a big fan? Was she or not?
She must have been. Sudeiko's also saying it was about keeping the kids guessing. Oh, and Julianne, not a fan of the Bad Wolf thread, and RTD still doing this clever trick, but much worse. Graham, I personally think all of New Who would be improved without any of these big series arcs, or at least do a couple of seasons without a blooming arc. What do you guys think of that one then?
Well, they tried that with Jodie for her first season. So
did they? Oh, they did, and it didn't work then for them, or what?
I think you can have an arc, like an episode that maybe in terms of the scale might be big or the emotional impact is going to be big, but it just be a normal episode. You can still do it that way. You don't need to, I think as George say, have to tie in everything from the other 13 episodes for it to be you could still have a season finale, but they could have, done it a little bit differently. I think it worked in season 3 with the Master. I think that was done really well, but I think, you didn't have to be every season. I think they could have mixed it up. Just have a normal episode. And then, something happens and it leaves an impact going into the next season. Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting to hear that they've brought it back now, have they? This is all this thing that's happened since the 60th anniversary is bringing it back because it wasn't done in Jodie's time.
No, they did it. They didn't do it in our first season, but they did like Flux and stuff like that and that kind of thing. So there was kind of arcs as well after the first season. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's interesting to hear what Emilio and Kirsty and Miles have to say about this because this was them. This was, this was the newbies. This whole thing, and it worked. They did it so often. I mean, I got bored by Torchwood. That's just the year.
Of course, we had the classic "Timeless Child" as well from Jodie's era too, but less about the better. Yeah. So.
Well, that's still around today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Legion of James, the convoluted arcs and connecting inserts have all led to Mrs. Flood. It's what always happens. Rinse and repeat until it's faded, misshapen mess of its former self. I have to say, I agree that. I do agree with that, and nobody cares. There's nobody cares. Derek Hart, I can't believe it's 20 years of revamp of Doctor Who, but 5 seasons less weird. That and getting the less episodes since Peter Capaldi left for good.
I think if they didn't have a set template of having season arcs and doing it that way, it would keep you on your toes a little bit more. Maybe one season is more like a season arc, and one isn't. Like you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season. I think you then get into the cycle of you just expect a season arc every season, and then when it happened with Jodie's era, and it felt like it fell on a flat pancake. Maybe because it's a terrible episode anyway, and she's terrible as a Doctor. But I think people were a bit like, they've had 10 years of expecting it. So I think, unfortunately, RTD kind of set the template and it just continued. And then if you try and change it, then people have to completely rechange their expectations. So, yeah.
It's a good point. But more fools Moffat for taking the template and carrying on with it, isn't it, really? And driving those expectations. Because it would have been only the fans that were saying, what's this year's theme going to be?
Yeah.
Really, the public wouldn't have given them a big flying jelly.
It's just trying to allude to something bigger to come later down the line. I remember, was it Matt Smith's first episode? Patient Zero mentioned silence will fall. We don't meet the silence until the following year. It's just alluding to stuff that's going to come later down the track, which is fine as long as it doesn't have any significant, plot connotations that you have to have seen all those references. I think it's just,
but they don't generally kind of follow through with it, do they? They never get a proper conclusion. It's always like alluded to, but never resolved properly. I find personally.
Sorry, Benjamin, go on.
No, the Bad Wolf thing is just the thing at the end is the Daleks are the Bad Wolf because they've that's the corporation that owns the satellite and all that sort of stuff. It's just alluding to the series finale. It's nothing more than that, which is at this stage is fine. When you get to, as you said, the sort of crack in the wall, and that is a major plot device, then it becomes a bit dodgier, and you really feel like you've had to have followed it all the way through, rather than just dropping this line in for those that are watching it every week. But if you hadn't watched it every week, you weren't really missing out.
Yeah, because Moffat, I think, said that he wanted, basically, if you think of the art, it's basically setting up the Doctor and Trenzalore, the end of, like, it's literally the 11th. He wanted to set something up with the 11th Doctor's beginning, that referencing to where he ends up at the end. And you're right, if you've not watched all the episodes, you're going to be completely lost, and and baffled. And to be honest, that's what happened in the Smith era. Is a lot of people were lost and baffled because it got
which was one of the big criticisms of that era. But then I think we're talking about, series 1. Bad Wolf was just a line that you either got it or you didn't, and it didn't really impact on the final story.
Yeah, but there's always the risk that you set something up and then you don't have a payoff, or you have a very weak payoff.
Yeah,
which to me is what this Bad Wolf thing was. I remember sitting there watching and thinking, "Is that it? Is that the best you can do?"
Yeah. And the danger now, of course, is that series 1 for 2005 had 13 episodes. Today you get 8.
Yeah.
So you have to spread it over the two and a bit series they've had, really. And there's nobody lingering now. At least in 2005, they had an audience who would have got that reference rather at the very end, because they've been there from Rose right till the very last episode.
Yeah.
I want to come to that now, because of course this was the only series for the Ninth Doctor, the only series for Christopher Eccleston, and the interest as it came to the end of the series, when the British public, not just the fan base, but the British public knew his time's up. And by God, they were coming in. I mean, I know the figures have gone down a little bit, but I'm going to say again, that whole week between that episode and his last episode, what's going to happen? It was incredible. It really was great. And my God, they really played on it. And what an emotive episode. There were some certain scenes in this episode where Eccleston was just shining.
Yeah.
Really making the most of this. And as George said, he was really, what a pro. What a pro. He knew he was going. He knew he was going in circumstances he might not have liked. I reckon he would have done a second one had everything been happy. What were we saying, Kirst?
That scene still gets me when the holograph turns its head and goes, "Have a nice life."
Yeah.
Do that for me.
That's good.
It's very clever.
Do that for me.
Very, very clever. Sorry, Emilio.
No, I'm going to say it's just following it's just a brilliant scene. I agree with Curti. It's very emotional. It's great. I can't say anything more than that.
No, absolutely fantastic. I mean, a lot of you will know about this as well. You know where we're going on this as well. The Sadeko 24 is saying that "Have a Good Life" speech was beautiful.
Yeah.
Steve Black takes us back to where we came through with Lex at the beginning, saying Barcelona. Yeah, I'm never quite sure what that was about, but never mind. I think he was just going a little bit sort of weird there sorry?
I can say the one thing I remember vividly about seeing that regeneration scene was there were definitely echoes of in the initial stages of William Hartnell's regeneration at the end of the 10th Planet, the same shot of the hand on the console that shimmers, and then the camera cuts and everything. I thought somebody somewhere is paying homage to the 10th Planet here.
Do you think, this is for the old fans here, do you think he should have laid down to regenerate or standing up is best?
Actually, funny enough, I thought the fact that he stood up worked really well.
Yes, so did I. Yeah, and it was a shock.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, it was a shock. The fact that suddenly, hang on a minute, you've got this element here where he's not dying. He's not. This was more energetic, wasn't it? It was more action-packed in a sense, but it was a shock.
Yeah. I remember thinking the actual visual effect of the changeover worked very, very well. Compare that to with The Best Will in the World, John Pertwee to Tom Baker, where it's a very quick optical wipe and that's it.
You see the hair,
the hair growing out, all that sort of stuff, and the nose changing, all that sort of stuff. That was really well done.
Oh, well, even also considering that the actors weren't together to do it.
Yeah.
Again.
I do think this is the best regeneration of the new series because it's sad, but also there's also makes you smile at the end as well, so you feel sad that the Ninth Doctor's gone, but it's not melodramatic, it's not overplayed. I mean, I used to think the 10th Doctor's regeneration was the best because I love the 10th Doctor, but they milk out the emotion way too much.
It takes 2 weeks to regenerate, doesn't it, to be honest?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the thing with this, it's short, it's sweet, it's beautiful, and then he changed, and it continued the conversation with the Barcelona comment. You're like, it's still the same character.
This one as well was beautifully written, that it's for us three, that this would all been brand new to us. So the way he explains, when he's like holding onto his hand and he's like holding out his stomach and he is as if he's about to start spewing and he's like, I'm about to change. These things happen. It's an old Time Lord kind of get out of jail card trick that we do, because I was very blessed and lucky that I think my dad tried to shield me from what was going on because he knew in the news that Christopher was going. So he tried to keep it away from my brother and I. So it would be a surprise for us when we watched it. And we were like, huh? So what's going on? Like, why does this happen? So it was a nice way for people and adults as well who may be watching it for the first time back then, so they were able to see what was going on and what typically happens.
I love that you didn't know it was coming. Amelia, Miles, did you know it was coming?
No, unfortunately, my dad let me know that Tom Baker existed and his Doctor. So by the time I got round to it, I already knew that the Doctor could change his face. So the surprise, I didn't get the surprise, unfortunately. He ruined it. Let's blame him for that one. Yeah.
What about you, Miles?
No, I never knew it was coming. I thought the regeneration's beautiful. I like that it's not like we were saying, Amelia, and that was saying that it's not overly dramatic. He's not crying. He's not, oh no, this is it. This is the end now. And
I don't want to go.
Yeah, he was more. He wasn't happy to go, but he knew it felt like this isn't the end. You know, I'm gonna come back in a second. And I think that's what we need in the new series. Obviously, we won't talk about that. But like, I think that's what we need more of. And the regeneration, like the actual change, you know, actually see him physically change into David Tennant was a really, really nice touch, especially for, you know, the graphics and stuff back then. Yeah. You know,
it's like grief as well. It was like acceptance.
Yeah, he was happy, sort of. Yeah.
The Doctor gives himself some love at the end, I think, because obviously he's gone through a journey, right? And he's finally gone, you know, I'm fantastic. Like, I'm not going to stop beating myself up about the Time War and you know, being, you know. So I think it's a nice payoff to the arc that he's gone through as well, and to give him some self-love at the end, which is nice.
I love listening to these three talking about this, because we obviously old hands. The only surprise for us was, how are they going to do this one? Unfortunately, it seems to have stuck for the rest of all time. The fallout of the 11th, or the fall of the 11th, it's nice to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. I do find it funny how every regeneration recently seems to change how the Doctor reacts to regeneration. 10 hates it, 11 was cool with it, 12 hated it, 13 seemed mixed on it, did she? And 14 exploded into 2. Yeah, that was desperate, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think out of all of them, I'm going to agree with everybody in the chat, I'm going to agree with you guys. Out of all of the Reboot Who ones, this is probably the most subtle, the classiest, and possibly the best. Because it just gets on with that blooming job, kills him, and gives him a new face. That's what I like about it.
This is the one from the Revive series that has any real impact. I mean, like the David Tennant one, first time round, I just sat there and just ended up saying, "Oh, just get on with it."
Yeah. It's like, come on.
Get the new guy on. Come on. We've moved on already. So behind Eccleston's I think I can feel it speech from Rose, brilliant, clearly shows who the Doctor is. Mrs. Lisa Pertwee saying to me, JT, what do you think of the 8th Doctor drinking potion from the Sisterhood of Khan to regenerate into? Ask me in a show in a couple of weeks' time when we do our spring special. Ask me then. Let's go into it then, because that's be a bigger show for us, and I'll tell you about it then. Rory and Cheryl are saying, I knew it was coming. Yeah, well, if you'd read their papers on the Sunday after the first episode, when they were celebrating,
it was still highly enjoyable if you knew, though. I really enjoyed it, even though it was coming. It's great.
As I said earlier, I distinctly remember hearing before the first episode was even broadcast that
I'll have to do a research, because I don't remember seeing it in the press until the Saturday morning, because I just thought, oh, for heaven's sake, they've just gone and spoiled the end.
I have to embarrassingly say, we're all friends here and in the chat as well, that I remember because I got it was shielded from me, and then how they had the Doctor Who Confidential on BBC 3. And sometimes if we didn't have anything else to do, we'd hop on to BBC 3 and watch that. But then when Simon Pegg was narrating that for that first season, and it was like a look back on all the best bits of the 9th Doctor, and they played Snow Patrol with that in the background, and it's Simon Pegg going, thank you. So every time I hear that song, it makes me go,
Oh, wow.
Classy, and how childhood memories, like the love of sci-fi memories, but also how brilliant that series was.
Wow.
Is it Snow Patrol Run? Is that the one?
Uh-huh.
I remember watching that as a kid. Yeah, it's great.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it leads quite on a sad note, doesn't it? If I remember correctly, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just every time I'm like, when I hear that song, I just think of that part, and I'm like, and Simon Pegg let's look back at his best bits and like, thank you to the Ninth Doctor, and I was like,
I think one thing we can all agree on, both on the panel and of course all our Who viewers as well, is wow, what a performance from this gentleman. I mean, 13 episodes in, and to this day, he's still the Doctor. You know, whether you grew up with him or whether you were new to the show, or whether we coming back to the show like some of us, he really was a pro, and he did some superb work, and he was just fantastic. And I think he deserved that ending. It's just a shame that we now know what we know.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. And I'm going to say it again, as with many things in Doctor Who, we was robbed of that second series. No disrespect for once to Mr. Tennant at all. But I think we were. I would have loved to have seen Mr. Eccleston doing another one, but we never got it. And there we go. But we've still got this series, haven't we? And he did go out with a literal bang, and what a way to do it. But all I can say is, well done, Mr. Eccleston, and congratulations. Yeah. What a series. What a series. So many moments in series one, everybody. It's 20 years old now from its original broadcast. I want to say thank you, actually, to everybody for joining us tonight. To Miles, Bedweir, to Kirsty, Lady of the Chat, to Emilio, to George, to Paul, and to all of you in the chat. This is the first of our look back, our marking of 20 years of Reboot Who. Yep. Part 2 of our series this month is one of our companion piece shows. Next week, live at 8 o'clock on the channel, we are going to be looking at, of course we are, the other star of this series, Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. Rose Tyler is Billie Piper. And after tonight, I can't wait, because my world's been shocked a little bit there, because I thought, oh, this is going to be boring because it's going to be a love fest. But it doesn't look as if it's going to be. Yeah, we're going to be looking at Billie's performance as Rose Tyler in both her series and then the other times where she came back. You can talk about anything you want with us on that, but certainly her introduction in 2005. Guys, what a show. Thank you so much to all of you for joining me. I'm hoping you're going to be with me for all of these shows marking 20 years of Doctor Who, the new version. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, we all got fantastic. What a line. From all of us on the channel, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you have already subscribed to the channel, please make sure you are still subscribed. Do all the usual stuff you need to do, but more importantly, come back to talk about Rose Tyler next week. The week after that is going to be our show, which is actually looking at the whole of the 20 years. That's going to be bloody days now, I think about it. But you can talk about any elements of the era there, including the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era. I want to know what you guys really thought about that, because the show is called Is It Time to Call It a Day? So join us for that. And there we are. She said it. And then the week after that, on the night itself, we are going to be looking at Rose as part of Who's Views Reviews. Come and stay with us. Come and join us. Thank you so much again to the panel. Thank you to all for joining us. We are going to be seeing you. Our next scheduled show is Headlines on Sunday, the big show for Sunday, 8 o'clock. Come and join us for that. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, a great evening. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.